right. Hey, good morning. It is the Rise and Grind Morning Show. It is Tuesday, 8:01 a.m., almost on time today. So good morning. Thank you for joining us today. Of course, here on the Rise and Grind Morning Show, we talk all things Detroit Lions and around the NFL. And right now, according to Chef, it is silly season. So we are really digging deep here, trying to find some topics to cover and try not to give you guys any of the clickbait that everyone else is trying to throw out there right now. But I appreciate everyone joining us again this morning. Looks like we've already got a packed house in the chat. Eric, good morning. How you doing today? Let's hope you have audio. Go.
Yeah. So what do you guys think? Does it sound great this morning or what?
I hope so. I mean, I can hear you. I mean, I did a test. Just let us know real quick that we've got Eric on the mic. We don't have any echoes. We don't have any crazy sound. I mean, the sound should be tight this morning. Should be loud enough. And if it's not, we'll make some small adjustments and make sure you guys have your volume turned up, though. That is one of the biggest things that we find out through this, that your volume is quite low and you can't hear all of us. So Tracy says, woohoo to audio. Looks like we're all good. So
for once.
This morning's roster, we're going to kick it off with a little bit of Lions news and rumors. And all the NFL defenses are ranked. I found this to be interesting where the Lions ended up. And how dare you doubt the Lions? I know we're only, half a season already removed from what was our best season, I think, ever. At least in 50 years. And I guess when you count up the playoff appearances, the playoff wins, NFC title games we've never been to, but the Lions have never really done anything in a very, very long time. And this last season, man, we got to that pinnacle. We were right there, and we just couldn't take that extra step. And for whatever reason, there's a few people out there, well, there's more than a few, but they're doubting the Lions, that they're never going to win a Super Bowl, or they have the lowest chances to win a Super Bowl against all other teams. So we're going to get into all of that this morning. So we'll be back here in 90 seconds. Let's get it kicked off. Here we go.
Schefter at ESPN says there's 275,000 people.
Well, that was some party in downtown Detroit. 775,000 people, shattering the NFL draft attendance record.
This is the future.
All grit.
Evolution. This is the future.
All grit.
Evolution.
All right, that was a quick 90 seconds. So good morning, everybody. We're back. We're kicking it off. It's Rise and Grind morning show on Tuesday. Before we get to sponsors, I want to give a shout out to Green Mark Equipment in Hastings, John Deere equipment. So hold on, what are they? They sell all the John Deere equipment. They sell parts and service. And I needed a hydraulic hose yesterday. Couldn't find it anywhere. I blew it on Saturday on the tractor, and I needed one. And couldn't find one anywhere. And I called them. I went out there. They said, you know what, buddy? Just bring it in. We'll get you taken care of. And they made one on the spot. Like, I thought that was just the coolest thing ever, that they made a hydraulic hose to fit an older tractor. And the bucket was kind of just hanging there, had no hydraulic pressure to it. So Shout out to them this morning. They really did a great job. But let's get to the rest of our sponsors of the show today. SportsSpider. So I'm going to walk you guys through SportsSpider today. I'm going to show you how it works. Just want to make sure that you guys have seen it. But SportsSpider.com, get all of your news up to the minute. Insiders, podcasts, articles, your favorite journalist. Everybody is on SportsSpider. Every sport is on SportsSpider. So get all of your news in one place at SportsSpider.com. And then Uperlights. Eric, take it away.
Yeah. So right now, rock hounding is the #1 fastest growing hobby in the world. Everyone seems to be getting into rock hounding right now. People that have never tried it, they're all getting out on the Great Lakes, trying some rock hounding. And what better way to do it than with UV lights and go at night? You can go all day and all night. So stop at uperlights.com. We have the best flashlights, rock sticks, and all the equipment you need to get into rock hounding at uperlights.com.
All right. So I want to show you guys SportsSpider. So if you haven't been to the site yet, this is the site. I just typed in sportspider.com. And here's what I'm going to do. I want to find my Lions news of the day. So I'm going to click NFL. And then I'm going to go down to Detroit Lions. And bang. Oh, hey, who's that? That's Rocked On Podcast Network. We're featured today. So that's the news article. You've got popular. So anything that's popping up about your Detroit Lions today is going to filter right here. The coolest thing is you can sign up for free. And when you sign up for free, you can kind of create your own feed. You can, follow podcast articles. They've got a whole section here on actual audio podcast. So not the same old Lions. Great podcast over there. You got to check him out. Got the Valenti Show, the Detroit Lions podcast. Interesting episode the other day. I caught that one while I was doing some work. Interesting episode on mental health. I wasn't quite sure how that fit with football, but actually it was a great episode. So I would listen to that one if you guys haven't yet. But anyway, you've got everybody in here, and we'll be in here soon once we start uploading everything to our RSS feed. And then you got videos, so anything that's popping up with Rocked On Podcast Network, Pride of Detroit, you name it, they're in there. I guess we're in there a lot. Lions Talk by Chat Sports, Detroit Lions Podcast. So all of your favorites, anybody that you listen to now and people that you haven't discovered yet, check out sportspider.com. Give them a ride. I promise you will love the site. I love it. I use it every day to find all of the notes and newsworthy information to help do these shows, especially in the silly season when there's not much going on. So let's get back to the roster and kick it off right away this morning. So Lions news and rumors. Eric, what do you have for us this morning on Lions news and rumors?
Well, Sports Illustrated has put out their 6 bold predictions for the Lions in 2024. And the first one is Aiden Hutchinson notches 15 sacks. They're saying that Hutchinson has shown growth in each of his first 2 NFL seasons and finished the 2023 campaign on a tear. He had 5 sacks over the final 2 regular season games to surpass double-digit sacks on the year. So they're thinking that he's going to get up to 15 this year.
I think that, if you want to comment on that, I would say that, and I'm not trying to be a downer, but yeah. I kind of feel like that's his ceiling this year, but I'm not going to give him a ceiling. I feel like that's a great number. Obviously, Aiden wants to have the most sacks in the NFL, but here's what I would love to see from Aiden. Just finish. Just finish and win your one-on-ones and just fit that role to a T. There's a difference between getting sacks and like your mind is focused on one thing to get sacks to be the best in the NFL, and I don't think Aiden plays that way. I mean, obviously he wants to play extremely hard and tough and gritty and get after it, but I think that Aiden is a pretty smart football player too, and I think that he understands that this is about the team and the team winning. So sometimes you just can't get after the quarterback as much as you would like because sometimes you get yourself out of position or it's, a detrimental play to the defense where you're out of position. I don't think that Aiden is going to play, like that this season. I think that he's really going to dial it in, and you're going to see a different style of football coming from Aiden because of the way that this defense is totally revamped. And we'll talk about some more of that here when we get into defensive rankings. So go ahead and continue.
Yeah. Well, with Aiden Hutchinson, the thing is, I truly believe he's got somewhere between 12 and 15 sacks in him this year, and possibly more. Could he hit 17, 15, 16? Sure. But I'm going to surprise everyone. I hope he doesn't have 15 or more sacks. Why would I hope that he doesn't? Because I'm hoping that Davenport, Matu Betts, James Houston are on a tear, and they're getting 6, 8, 9 sacks apiece. So as a total, we're getting more sacks, but we're keeping that quarterback contained. We're holding the edge, and we're not letting everyone run around all over on us, especially these mobile quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson and Justin Fields and all these guys. We need to keep them contained. And if we can, as a whole, I think as a whole defense, getting more sacks, I think we'll have more sacks in 2024, but they don't need to all come from Aiden Hutchinson. He'll get his own. He'll get some. Don't worry. He'll still be good. Pro Bowl, here we go.
So my news and note rumor this morning, so my Lions news and rumors, is the 5 head coaches that have been labeled as the best head coaches in the NFL, ranked in the 2024 season by Lou Scadiglia. I think that's how you say his last name. Probably butchered it. Apologize, Lou. But anyway, right off the bat with number 5, John Harbaugh, Baltimore Ravens. They say that John Harbaugh has won 2 playoff games since 2015, so there is a valid concern as to whether Harbaugh has hit a ceiling as a head coach. The Baltimore Ravens are always a well-coached, well-run team, but it might be time for some new blood. Nonetheless, John Harbaugh has led his Ravens to 5 double-digit wins over the last 6 seasons. So the wins are there, but the playoff success hasn't been. If John Harbaugh were to get fired today, about 28 other NFL teams would line up to acquire his services. Just like quarterbacks, head coaches, man, it is extremely easy to get worse at head coach than it is to get better. Careful what you wish for. John Harbaugh is an excellent coach, and I'll tell you what, there's not too many in the league that are having double-digit wins 5 out of 6 seasons in a row. I would attribute the loss in the playoffs to other factors, namely Lamar Jackson, great quarterback during the regular season. When he's healthy, when he plays, falls apart postseason. He's just not a postseason winner yet. He's had a glimpse of success in the NFL, and then he's had a bunch of seasons of just kind of being there. Great quarterback at times, but it's the consistency factor that I would say that's probably not helping John Harbaugh. And then at number 4, your Detroit Lions head coach, Dan Campbell. And Dan Campbell's Detroit Lions have gone 21-13 over the last 2 seasons, including a 12-win season last season, which also saw them make it to the NFC Championship game. Campbell's rugged attitude and personality is exactly what the Detroit Lions franchise needed, and with one of the best rosters in the NFL and one of the youngest rosters in the NFL, the Lions feel like a legitimate Super Bowl contender in 2024 and beyond. And it feels like Campbell is one of and it feels like Campbell is the one coach that every player in the league would love to suit up for. That last statement, I believe, is powerful. It's not often that you have a coach that just draws so much attention, right? And he's not doing it in any other way than being who he is at his roots. Dan Campbell is as authentic as they come. And this article is spot on, not only from that statement, but actually saying that, we are a Super Bowl contender, which I wholeheartedly believe that we are. But Dan Campbell is, he is like a, what do you call a bug light to bugs, man. He's bringing talent in. People want to play for him. People want to be around him. People want to coach with him. We haven't had that in Detroit in forever. So I would say that the Coach Caldwell was probably the last great coach that we had, before Dan Campbell. And before that, I quite honestly would have to go all the way back to Wayne Fontes. And that's too far in between, having 3 good coaches, over the last 40 plus years. So I'm extremely excited that we have Dan Campbell as a head coach, and hopefully for a very long time. Number 3, Sean McVay. I don't think that this one's a surprise, but the Los Angeles Rams team was easily the best coaching job of his career, and he brought immediate change to LA Rams when he got hired back in 2017, as he's compiled a total record of 77-49 with 6 winning seasons in 7 years. McVay is already building a Hall of Fame career, and he's still just 38 years old. His 2024 season with the Rams may be the last hoorah that they have with Matthew Stafford under center, as a veteran quarterback is getting older. Make no mistake, McVay is one of the best in the business and will continue to be one of the best for years to come. At number 2 is Kyle Shanahan, San Francisco 49ers. Now a 2-time Super Bowl appearing head coach, Kyle Shanahan may end up with a bust in Canton one day. But he's the San Francisco 49ers head coach since 2017 and has 4 double-digit winning seasons over the last 5 years. A few of his not-so-great years in San Francisco were actually due to some brutal injury luck. He's won 55.7% of the regular season games and a stellar 66.7% of postseason games. At some point, Shanahan has to win a Super Bowl. Right? Well, hopefully not this year. And then number 1, any guess on who do you think the number 1 head coach is, Eric?
Oh, man. Probably Andy Reid.
There you go. Number 1, Andy Reid. There is no question, no argument to not have Andy Reid at the top of the head coach power rankings. He's helped the Kansas City Chiefs win 3 Super Bowls over the last 5 seasons. Currently on a streak for a three-peat, and while the star quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, is surely playing a massive part in that, Reid has been doing his head coaching thing for decades, and it's one of the 5 best all time. Big Reid's time as head coach may be nearing its end, perhaps within the next 5 seasons, but his resume speaks for itself, and aging this far into his career is clearly not impacting his ability, as he's been able to adapt to the ever-changing NFL. Thought it was a pretty good list. I'm just happy to see Dan Campbell in the mix of the top 5. I think that speaks volumes to Dan Campbell and what he's been able to do. What's your thoughts on that?
Do you remember when Bobby Ross was here? Not too many free agents wanted to come here.
Nope.
When Matt Patricia was here, absolutely 0 free agents wanted to come here. 0. No one. Not a single player wanted to come to Detroit in free agency. And even drafted players were like, no, please, please, please don't. No, not Detroit, not Detroit. Well, it's not that way anymore. Now, all of the players in the NFL, all the players in the draft, they all want to play for MCDC. Who wouldn't? Man, this beer drinking, caffeine slugging rock star. I would love to go play for this guy, man. He just gets you pumped up. He gets you wanting to go. Hey, Adam, thanks for the super chat there. That's awesome. Or the buy me a coffee, whatever that is there.
Super chat.
Yeah, super chat. Awesome. The Bears worry me more than Green Bay. Their defense embarrassed us. These games were so frustrating to watch as a fan. Thank you for all you do. Go Lions. That's awesome.
Yeah, Adam, thank you for the super chat this morning. And let me speak to your comment here for just a second. Valid points with Green Bay. And the Bears did have a nasty defense last year, but they didn't click on all cylinders all the time. I get your point that maybe you're a little bit more worried about the Bears this year bringing in Caleb Williams, but I am not worried about Caleb Williams right now. I'm really not, and maybe I'm just blowing smoke. I don't know, but I'm not worried. I think that the Bears are more of a train wreck than they are put together. Green Bay has a solid chance to be a contender this year, in my opinion, for whatever it's worth. Jordan Love, he's got to show more, though. 8 games in his career, in his first real season as a quarterback. were phenomenal. But the other games make you ask a lot of questions. So we got embarrassed by the Ravens, I felt like was our worst game last year. And then we did get thrashed pretty bad by the Green Bay Packers. They completely terrorized our offensive line. We can't allow that to happen again. And if we know anything about these Detroit Lions, they won't let it happen again. So go ahead and continue on with your statement there.
Oh, I was just talking about Dan Campbell. Who wouldn't want to play for the guy? And a lot of the things I see on social media are from other teams like the Bears, the Packers, and the Vikings fans that like to pick on us and pick on MCDC because overall he doesn't have a winning record. And I was looking at something the other day where he's pretty darn close. The last 2 years have really helped him. I know we had the 3-13-1 season to start it off, but he's almost to 500, right? And I was reading this thing about NFL coaches, and they had all the different divisions showing the longevity of each coach in every division. And the NFC North was the only division where every head coach in the division had been there for at least 2 years. All the other divisions have a fresh coach this year or within the last year. So the NFC North, I think, is going to be super, super tough head coaching wise because you're going to have some stability there. And MCDC is putting it together. He's getting things the way he wants them to be. And who the heck wouldn't want to play for this guy, man? It's like having somebody from the WWE be your coach, but a lot smarter than you think he is. He came off as this big goofball in the beginning, but man, he might be a goofball now and then, but he's way smarter than he looks.
So yeah, he's smarter than your average bear, eh? Little Yogi Bear shout out. So, Coach Campbell's 24-26 right now, regular season, but he's 2-1 in the playoffs. So he carries a pretty solid record right now for the Lions in the playoffs. Obviously, we would have wanted to have won, 2 more games last year. But at 24-26, so last year I put out a prediction that Dan Campbell was going to finish at 500 by the end of the season. And that Cowboys game really derailed us from being able to achieve that. We are so close. He just had to win that Cowboys game and he would have been at 500. And hey, it is what it is. We're gonna get it back in blood this year. So up next, how dare you discount the Lions not being able to win a Super Bowl this year? As I go through this, make sure that you guys can hear audio, but let me bring this up here. So article by Bleacher Report, and it's talking about, I guess it's not going to go up any further. Talking about the first Super Bowl, ranking each NFL team's likelihood to win their first Lombardi in 2024 by Brad Gagnon. It was written on July 5th, 2024. So exactly 20 NFL franchises have won at least one Super Bowl, a number that hasn't changed since the Philadelphia Eagles finally joined that club at the conclusion of the 2017 season. However, based on odds from DraftKings, 4 of the top 7 Super Bowl franchises our Super Bowl franchise favorites are teams that have never claimed the Vince Lombardi trophy. Let's take a look at those 4, as well as 8 other Super Bowl less teams and their chances of breaking through in 2024. So first up, the Buffalo Bills. Despite the fact that they took some hits under the cap crunch this offseason, the foundation is still there for a Bills team that undoubtedly possesses a Super Bowl caliber quarterback in Josh Allen. Allen has been in the MVP mix annually for pretty much his entire career. And if he personally takes the next step in his age 28 season, it might not matter if he's slightly less supported now than in recent campaigns. The Bills have won at least one playoff game in each of the last 4 postseasons. It's entirely possible that this is the year they finally string 3 or 4 together. Yeah, I'm not confident in the Bills. But he's got a 10% likelihood. The Bengals. So the Bengals were a perennial contender on Buffalo's level before quarterback Joe Burrow's injuries tanked their 2023 season. Like the Bills, they also suffered, excuse me, they also suffered a bit in the offseason as a result of salary cap constraints. But a healthy Burrow absolutely leaves Cincinnati in the Lombardi mix. Only the Bills and 4 other teams have stronger Super Bowl odds than Cincinnati. That's kind of odd to me. And then there's a decent chance that Burrow stays healthy and also takes his game to the next level at the age of 28. If so, a Bengals team that won 5 playoff games in 2021 and 2022 combined could finally grab a championship. Likelihood, 9%. I'm not high on the Bengals this year. I mean, I still think that Joe Burrow is a great quarterback. I'm just not high in the Bengals. Then we've got our Detroit Lions. Only the 49ers have better Super Bowl odds in the NFC than a Lions team. That on paper is even better now than it was when it won a dozen games and came just a few points short of its first ever Super Bowl appearance in 2023. The overall talent level in Detroit probably trumps Buffalo and Cincinnati at this point, but the defense was often still a liability in 2023. That's facts. It's still tougher to buy into Jared Goff than it is Allen or Burrow. Why? Why is it tougher to buy into Jared Goff? I don't get this hate on Jared Goff. The man has done nothing but prove everybody wrong, and Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes and Mark Brunell right. I don't get it. His arm may not be as strong as Allen or Burrow, but man, is his intelligence off the Richter scale. So anyway, it's fair to still wonder if this franchise remains snake bitten. Well, we talked about the curse the other day. That's put away. We're done with it. The Lions snuck up on the league a bit last year. Will it be tough to maintain that and live up to the hype in 24? It's worth considering, but they absolutely should be in the mix, and a run to the Super Bowl is definitely on the table. 8%. Now, he didn't necessarily doubt the Lions per se, but I feel like he's doubting the Lions. He's got too many questions as opposed to reasons as to why the Lions could do it. He mentions, the offensive side of the ball or the roster, for the Lions is probably better than the Bills and the Bengals, but just casting shadows over top of Jared Goff and what they've been able to do. And one of the best motivational coaches there is in the game, one of the smartest, affluent, offensive coordinators in the game, now adding a defensive line genius in Terrell Williams. Deshae Townsend is finally going to get our cornerbacks room and the DB room overall back into shape. The addition of all of the free agents and the draftees that came in this year, there is no reason why the Lions shouldn't be the 10% odds on winning a Super Bowl or making it to the game over top of the Bills and the Bengals. Then we have the Houston Texans. This one kind of did make sense to me at all. A 5% likelihood for the Texans with a team that probably has the most loaded defense of any team right now. Now, they still have to work together, right? They still have to stay healthy. You have to, have that gel factor. And we don't know if they have it yet. We don't know if DeMeco Ryans is still, that coach that is really going to become somebody in the league. He's had some really good flashes so far. An extremely intelligent coach. But this is all about trajectory for the Texans. Just a year ago, the Texans ranked dead last in this exercise. I, by the way, did not have the Texans last year dead last. Matter of fact, if you go back to last March and April's, very bad start to my podcast, very bad audio and video, I had the Texans as the number 1 breakout team of the season last year. And I had C.J. Stroud as the best quarterback coming out of the draft. The receipts are there. I'm not gonna continue to pound the table with it. But anyway, C.J. Stroud and company were so incredibly successful under the tutelage of DeMeco Ryans in a shocking breakout 23 campaign. And it's hard to deny Houston's realistic Super Bowl chances in 2024. In addition to the 3 teams listed above, only the Chiefs, 49ers, and Ravens have better championship odds than Houston. That's what happens when you're loaded with young talent and add dudes like Danielle Hunter and Stephon Diggs to the mix. Still, we've seen this move before with teams that surprise the league and then come back to earth. Opponents will be ready for Stroud in 2024, and a sophomore slump can't be ruled out for him, Ryans, and or Will Anderson Jr. That's why we're going a little more conservative with Houston for now. 5% chance. I'm not going to read through all the rest, but Jacksonville Jaguars, 4%. Los Angeles Chargers, 3%. Cleveland Browns, 3%. Atlanta Falcons, 2%. Arizona Cardinals, 1%. Now, that is my team this year on the breakout watch list. I think that the Arizona Cardinals this year will be the 2024 Texans of 23. I know that kind of doesn't make sense, but I feel like they're going to have a very similar trajectory that the Texans did last year here in 2024. I'm not a big believer in Kyler Murray, but I am a big believer in what that team has just put together. Very smart team from GM all the way down. Minnesota Vikings, they shouldn't even be on this list, and they're less than 1%. Carolina Panthers, less than 1%. And then, of course, all of the rest of the teams below them. So according to this list, the 49ers, the Ravens, and the Chiefs have the highest propensity to winning or at least making the Super Bowl in 2024. Eric, your thoughts?
I see no reason why the Detroit Lions shouldn't be on top of this list as number one. In my mind, I just don't see how they are not better than last year, and we were only a few plays away. Vildor doesn't have that ball bounce off his head. Gibbs doesn't have that fumble. A few catches get made here and there, and all of a sudden, boom, we're in the Super Bowl. And I'm saying our chances were at halftime. If you would have went to AI and asked it what our chances were to go to the Super Bowl at halftime of that San Francisco game, we were probably a 90% favorite, 95% favorite to go to the Super Bowl. What's changing this year? Our defense is much better. We've done a bunch of drafting and gotten some really good guys that weren't supposed to be there in the 6th round and made some really crazy moves during the draft. So I'm thinking the Lions should be tops on this list.
Yeah.
Why Joe Burrow and the Bengals are up there? They shouldn't be anywhere near the top. They didn't do anything. They lost people like DJ Reader to the Lions, and all they're doing is getting Joe Burrow back from a elbow injury that they don't know what he's going to be. They don't know if he's going to be 100% and be able to throw the ball like he was doing before. So I would put the Lions tops on this list, not down at 3 or 4, 8%, whatever it is. No way.
I would at least have them even at a minimum. I would at least have them even with all those other teams. And talking about the elbow injury, so elbows are funny, man. The minute you hurt your elbow or your knee, or you end up getting tendonitis usually. And that is probably the worst nightmare for a quarterback, is that tendonitis that creeps up. And it's painful, and it's very painful to throw. And imagine that you're mid throw and all of a sudden, your elbow either gets stuck, or it pops or it snaps, and that tendon, just, it doesn't feel right. That's when you start to make bad throws. And shout out again to Adam for another $4.99 super chat this morning. Appreciate the donation to the channel and supporting us. You guys all do a great job. This community here of Lions fans is absolutely the absolute best sponsors, supporters, and community. Not only for our channel, but you guys have stepped up for my foundation and helping cancer survivors and other people in need. So I want to say thank you to everybody again this morning. So Adam says, who is your dream NFC championship opponent? Why does Goff get the weapons? Make him hate? I don't follow that, Adam. But then Jalen Hurts doesn't. Are you saying that why does Goff get weapons and then he gets the hate for getting the weapons around him, but Jalen Hurts gets the weapons around him, and people don't hate on Jalen Hurts, if I'm reading that correctly. And then when Hurts' supporting cast is also better. So if I understand your question or your statement here, it's Jared Goff gets a plethora of weapons, a great offensive line, and everybody's standing on their soapbox saying, well, hold on here. Jared Goff's only good because of Penei Sewell and Taylor Decker and Graham Glasgow and Kevin Zeitler and Frank Ragnow and Amon-Ra and all these other players, right? Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery and now Jameson Williams. That's the only reason why Jared Goff is good. Okay. You go out and name more than 5 quarterbacks ever that have won a Super Bowl or done really well as a perennial winner without a supporting cast. You can't do it. There's probably only 2 quarterbacks that have done more with less in recent history. And that was Aaron Rodgers. Never really, I don't think the Green Bay Packers ever went out and grabbed the number 1 wide receiver in any draft for like 20 years. They never really went out and grabbed talent early for the wide receiver room. They brought in talent. They found talent. They cultivated talent. But they really never gave him a huge supporting cast. But he did have some really good players. I mean, Jordy Nelson, back in the day was a phenomenal wide receiver. Devontae Adams, I mean, you name it. But I think that you could probably give Aaron Rodgers a little bit of some glory here to say that he probably did a little bit more with less. But then if you look at his overall record, he beat up on a terrible NFC North. I think he only won 1 Super Bowl. I think he had appeared in 2. And then you've got Tom Brady. I think that Tom Brady probably did the most with less, but he always had a consistent. He either had a really good tight end or a really good wide receiver or a pretty decent running back. He always had at least one. Offensive line was always really good. Some of the best in the league at times. Some of the worst, too. Wasn't as extremely mobile. If you could compare 2 quarterbacks, you could compare Tom Brady and Jared Goff from a playing style perspective. Thin, tall, lanky quarterbacks. Not the greatest arms in the NFL. I mean, don't lie to yourself. Tom Brady did not have a cannon. The guy was a beanpole just like Jared Goff. I mean, he's kind of slim. He's got a real sleek California body is what they like to call it, right? He's a little smooth around the edges. So it's just the ball jumps off your arm a little bit differently when you have the right mechanics. It doesn't matter if you have all the strength in the world. You don't need to be built like a brick house to throw the football. You don't need to be built like a Will Levis or, what's the other guy? What's the other quarterback? It's really Justin Fields. I mean, the dude looks absolutely ripped right now. You don't need to be built like that to have a strong arm. I mean, look at Matthew Stafford. He was never built. Matter of fact, when he came into the league, he had a ton of baby fat. He was chubby. Go back and look at his rookie season photographs. Dude was chubby.
Look at Mahomes.
Yeah, I mean, even Mahomes. He doesn't have, a ton of muscle on his body. He's got the dad bod going in the summer. But it's all about mechanics. That's what it all boils down to. I know I'm getting off on a tangent here, but to answer your question, Adam, I do believe that Jared Goff gets a lot of hate for no reason. You could transplant the same roster that's under Jared Goff to any other quarterback, and they're not going to say the same things about those quarterbacks that they are about Jared Goff. It's complete BS. So great point this morning. And who's my dream scenario opponent for the NFC Championship? Wouldn't you love to have the rematch back? I don't know. Do you really want the rematch, or do you want to be able to just beat somebody up that kind of limp their way in? I don't know. I guess when it comes to competition, you gotta beat the best to be the best. So
Exactly.
I would say I would love to see the 49ers back in this game and the Lions and the 49ers go back up against it. I would love to see it this time at home. That's where I'm hoping the game is at Ford Field. Shout out to Braylon Dennis, another $10 super chat.
He's on fire today.
And he says, people just need to understand that not everyone can be like Mahomes and Brady having to do more with less. It's infuriating. Goff is great. People need to accept it. Great point, Braylon. And thank you for being one of the consistent loyalty crew members here on Rocked On Detroit Lions, along with the rest of you guys. So I didn't shout out the chat this morning. I apologize. Tracy's in the house. Mike P. We had Chef Talks Lions. Who else is in here today? We got Rick. We've got Hostage 4-2. Chip Bradshaw. Good morning. David Barton. And David Barton says he's going on a cruise. I didn't get my ticket. Where's my ticket? I'm not going on a cruise. And have fun, man. Cruises are fun from what I hear. I don't really ever go on cruises. Michael Garrity's in the house. Who else is in here? Big Walt, Braylon Dennis, Adam, of course, Elizabeth LaValle. Who else is in here today? King SJ, of course, Randy P, Ed Andrews. Good morning, everybody. Appreciate you guys. You guys are awesome. Absolutely love it. So I guess to wrap up this segment, and talking about Jared Goff and the hate that the Lions are getting, about their Super Bowl odds. I just don't understand it. I really don't. Am I excited for the Lions? Absolutely. Do I believe that that they're on this path of first to worst? I don't. I mean, that's always in the back of your head because every year it happens. You have the worst to first, Arizona Cardinals, I think is that team. And then you have first to worst. And I've said it before and I'm going to say it again. That is the Kansas City Chiefs in 2024. That is a huge call out for me. I'm really putting myself on a limb there, but I just feel like the Chiefs are going to struggle. I think that the temptation is too high. I feel like the pressure is too much. They've had too many off-field issues. Now, if they can stop the off-field issue crap and contain their roster, keep everybody healthy, they will be in the hunt. But if this stuff keeps on following them, I believe that it's going to be too much to get over. I think there's going to be too many distractions. And that's why I'm not worried about the Lions. We do not have the distractions that every other team seems to have. We had some last year, and we overcame and we adapted. We overcame and we adapted. We pivoted whenever something was put in front of our road. And that's why Dan Campbell is such a great coach. And his supporting cast and the rest of the coaches around him, the reason why they're winning right now is because they know what the hell they're doing. And they don't just rub everybody the wrong way, right? I mean, they command respect, but they also give respect. Tell me, how many other coaches have fallen in Dan Campbell's footsteps of doing up downs now at training camp? They're all doing it. The ones that can, the ones that are healthy enough to do it.
Could you see Andy Reid doing up downs?
No. No, I kind of see that more of like SeaWorld, coming out of the water, catching a fish like a walrus. That when I see Andy Reid, I get this vision of a walrus. I don't know why, but I love Andy Reid, man. He's good people.
Got strong biceps from picking up them hamburgers and eating them.
All right, I'm not trying to hate on Andy Reid's physique or anything. It's just he's got that walrus face, and I know people have compared him to that before, but it's just always stuck in my mind ever since I read that. So anyway, this morning the big talk is about NFL defenses. So that's what's up next. It'll be the probably the biggest final topic of the day today. It's kind of a light morning, but the NFL defensive rankings are finally out. This I'm going to review today. We're going to talk about all 32. So before I even get to, and if you've read these articles, I try to pull from places that not everybody knows, but here's my question. And I don't know if maybe I can put it in the chat. Yeah, we'll do a Q&A. Where are the Lions expected to be for the defensive rank? Well, I'll just put right now. That's a terrible question, terrible statement, but I think you guys get the question here. So where are the Lions expected to be for defensive rank right now? So before training camp, before preseason, all of that stuff. Where do you think we are? Eric, I don't know if you've read this, but if you have, don't answer. If you haven't, where do you think the Lions are ranked right now?
I have not. So this is overall defense.
Yeah, this is your worst your NFL defensive rankings from worst to first. So kind of giving the Lions and every team, a little bit of a glimpse as to where they are after all of the free agency, the draft, everything. Where should they be on paper? What's your thought?
End of last year, we were about 17?
End of last year, I think we were 19th overall.
19th. Okay. So after everything we've done, I'm going to say 14.
Okay. It's a good guess. We'll see how close you are. But anybody else, just fill up that chat line, and then please do us a favor. I know Tracy is really great at getting you guys to like the stream. If you guys have been in here and you're here now and you just don't comment and you love our content or want to see more, you want to get it out to more Lions fans, liking the stream just helps us a ton. You don't have to donate. You don't have to do super chats. You don't have to do buy me a coffee. Simply just liking the content and then sharing it or inviting your friends to subscribe, and subscribing yourself helps us the most. Of course, we appreciate everything that you guys do, and I don't really ask a whole lot. That's why I put the graphics together now to kind of just have it out there to remind people that that's what helps us the most, especially when you have a few individuals that will put a thumbs down on every single video and live show I do just because they have hate, like Jared Goff. I guess I'm hated by a couple of individuals. And I, doesn't make sense. It could be a total, video about something extremely positive, and you always get a thumbs down. And I know who it is, but it's all good. And shout out to Adam again. Another $1.99 super chat says Ravens and Bills more likely, tougher divisions. So I'm not sure where you're going with that one, Adam. If you could maybe expand upon that just a little bit, that would probably help me. But they do have a little bit of a tougher division, for sure. I think the Lions division is going to be pretty tough here in a couple of seasons. All right, so let's start it off. Eric, let me send you this article.
Okay.
I'll send it to your email.
All right.
Forgot to do that this morning. I thought my email was open. Give me 1 second, everybody. I want to get this over to him. That way you can kind of follow along with, and I'll have you read a couple. How about that?
All right, that works.
Help rest my voice, man, because some days it's just a lot of talking. A lot of hot air. All right, it's on the way.
All right.
So before we get into it, the question is, where do you believe the Lions should be ranked ahead of training camp, ahead of preseason, ahead of week 1? Mike P says top 12. Chef Talks Lions says 11. Brent says, I'm hoping we are in the top 7. Tracy says 13. Of course, Eric said 14. Steve K says 15. Those are all very, very, very good guesses. And also, I think it shows how much you guys believe in your Lions right now, in the defense and the strategy that they put together. Braylon Dennis says we better be a top 10 this year. Brent says, I'm hoping we are in the top 7, but I will settle for top 10. Randy P says, I think dead mid at 16. Hoping they will improve over the year. Defensive back takes a while to adjust to from college. Adam says, going from first to worst, they are more likely than KC. I got you. Okay. I got you. And you know what? I could say that the Ravens could probably end up in that position. They lost Zeitler. They re-signed Matabuiki, right? So they didn't lose their massive defensive tackle. I don't believe. So I don't really know if they really lost a whole lot. Matter of fact, let me cheat for a minute and open up my notes and look at what they actually did. That's a whole nother conversation you could have on the defenses and the overall roster. But let me pull it up real quick. Only if I could find my Ravens notes. Here we go. Baltimore Ravens.
And I am in and ready to go on
Perfect.
that article.
So the Ravens, they re-signed Nelson Aguilar. They re-signed Madubuike, Malik Harrison, Derrick Henry, signed with the Ravens, obviously. They lost Tyus Bowser. They re-signed defensive line Brent Urban. They released Odell Beckham. They re-signed quarterback Josh Johnson, re-signed cornerback Arthur Millette. They signed Chris Board from the Detroit Lions, and then they signed Josh Jones, tackle. So they didn't really do a whole lot. They just retained. They retained their players. They had more re-signings than signings. So the Buffalo Bills, they are a complete mess this offseason. They were in cap purgatory, as I like to call it. They had over 15 transactions of re-sign. Here's their list: re-sign, re-sign, released, 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 signed, re-signed, extended, re-signed, 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 signed, signed, re-signed, signed, and signed. Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot of moves.
So why did the Bills have a better percentage to win the Super Bowl than the Lions then?
Yeah, I don't know.
No sense.
Well, when you look at the the type of moves that they made, I think that they did get better in some areas. They retained some talent in some areas. But as far as what they lost, though, they lost Jordan Poyer, they lost Saran Neal, they lost their other corner Mitch Morse, they lost Nyheim Hines. Deontay Hardy was probably not that big of a deal, but then Tre'Davious White, another. Their cornerback room, their DB room. Overall, they lost a lot. I think that that's going to be their biggest issue this year, is probably in the backfield for the Buffalo Bills.
Well, then,
which used to be a strength. Used to be a strength. So anyway, let's get into it. 32, Carolina Panthers. Carolina Panthers have the worst NFL defense in 2024. Is that shocking? I don't think it's shocking. Nope. Trading away edge rusher Brian Burns wiped away the one highly effective outside pass rusher that Carolina had, and we don't have much confidence in Jadeveon Clowney and DJ Wonnum that they can get the job done. If you can get after the passer, every other part of the unit will struggle. Or if you can get after the passer, every other part of the unit will struggle. For as much as we love the Panthers defensive coordinator, Evero, and defensive tackle Derek Brown, there's just isn't much else to believe in here. Now, where let me pull up the Lions schedule here. Can't remember. Do we have the Panthers again this year? I don't think we do.
No. I got the schedule up too.
All right, perfect. So, yeah, well, here we go. Next up is Atlanta Falcons. You want to take the Falcons?
Sure. So let's get back to that article. So the Atlanta Falcons, when the Atlanta Falcons had the worst pass rush in football, they sat near the bottom of our NFL defense rankings. We see no reason to move away from that process in 2024. Ryan Nielsen is gone. And while Atlanta added some intriguing rookies, Ororo, Braylon Trice, and Brandon Dorless to pair with Grady Jarrett, that also means a lot of unknown. Jarrett and AJ Terrell are nice, but there are some glaring weaknesses on the Falcons defense, and we don't have a ton of confidence in defensive coordinator Jimmy Lake making this work. Yeah, Atlanta is intriguing. I think they really went hard on offense with a lot of their picks. Taking that quarterback was mind-blowing to me and everyone else in America, that they did that, because they had Kirk Cousins, and I really thought they were going to go defense. So did everyone else. And I really thought they were going to go Terrion Arnold or the kid that went to the Vikings. What was his name? Dallas Turner. So I really thought Dallas Turner or Quinyon Mitchell or Terrion Arnold was going to go to the Falcons. And thank you, Atlanta Falcons. That's all I can say on the Atlanta Falcons defense. Thank you for not taking one of those players so we could get Terrion Arnold later in the draft.
So everyone knows that I was really high on Rook Ororo. I believe that he is going to be a stud in this league. Now, the Atlanta Falcons are going to have a young defense, but this year they're probably going to struggle defensively. But just listen for a moment. Rook Ororo, Braylon Trice, Brandon Dorlus. They hauled in 3 defensive tackles, defensive ends. Rook can play inside out, Braylon inside out, Brandon inside out. All 3 of them. Positional flex monsters. Atlanta Falcons are going to have an insanely good defensive line here in a couple of seasons. Defensive tackle is pretty tough, as a rookie to really affect the defense in a positive manner right away. It is one of the least sexiest positions to bring in. I mean, to us, we've always loved the defensive tackle position because of what Ndamukong Suh represented. Those are very rare athletes. Does not happen very often. But what they did here between these 3 guys, bringing in these rookies, I mean, they did kind of go defense, but you're right. They didn't address the cornerback room. And if I remember back to my notes, corner was probably the most significant area of need.
Yeah.
And then what they did at the quarterback position, it didn't make any sense at face value. But now it kind of makes sense because they can move off of Kirk Cousins after year 2. They can help this rookie get, up to speed and learn from one of the better quarterbacks to play in the NFL ever. I mean, Kirk Cousins has been a pretty consistent quarterback. Just postseason wise has never really put it all together for whatever reason. But he's a perennial winner. I mean, Kirk's a good dude. He does things the right way. And I think that that's probably why they brought him in, because when are you going to find, another quarterback of the future potential? I think that they reached big time. I think that they probably could have waited or made some moves to kind of move around the board. But then again, they probably heard things that we didn't know, that maybe someone else is going to take them. And for that reason, it kind of makes sense now. But investing that kind of money in Kirk, you really have to understand the contracts in the NFL. Remember the Fugazi, right? They're not going to get their money once, they decide to move off. It just depends on how the contract was constructed. So Denver Broncos, they are ranked 30th right now. The Denver Broncos didn't have many draft picks to work with in 2024, and they used a majority of them on offensive skill players. Maybe Jonah Ellis provides a minor boost for the Denver pass rush, but that unit looks like it will rank bottom 5 in pressure rate and sacks next season. Plus, on the outside of Patrick Surtain, the Broncos secondary is one of the worst in football. Already an uphill climb to move up in the NFL defensive rankings. A below-average offense that can't sustain drives will only make things worse. I agree with this. Putting the Broncos in the bottom 3 makes sense. They didn't do a whole lot. Obviously, struggling with the draft picks is all good points. So I'm on pace with this. I feel like that's a good spot for the Broncos to be in right now. Number 29, Washington Commanders. Eric, go ahead.
All right, the Washington Commanders. Rome wasn't built in a day. We like some of the additions Dan Quinn made to the Washington Commanders defense, with Bobby Wagner, Frank Louvu, and Jeremy Chin providing the Commanders defense with quality starters. Washington also found some exciting talent, defensive tackle Zerjan Newton and slot corner Mike Sainstrill. That's the kid from Michigan. And in the 2024 draft, while we do expect defensive improvements in comparison to the 2023 season, Washington is still likely to be going to have one of the worst NFL defenses in 2024.
So as far as Washington goes, this is an up-and-coming team. Washington is on a complete rebuild. They've got a defensive genius and Dan Quinn as their head coach. Having players like Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louvu, like I was on the fence with Louvu potentially becoming a Detroit Lion. Like, did it make sense? Probably did. But the Lions decided not to do anything there in that room this season. They wanted to retain their guys. But having guys like Bobby Wagner, Frankie Louvu, and Jeremy Chin, those are high-quality starters. and they're on their way. Bringing in a powerhouse like Jerzon Newton, even though I wasn't high on him, I did not have him as the number one defensive tackle clearly on my board, but he's still a very unique option for this team. Again, it's going to take a year or two for him to really get his feet underneath him, but sometimes we see a fire that gets lit underneath these guys, and it's not too often you have players like Kobe Turner that just light it up in year one, especially at that position. But I feel like this is an up-and-coming team. I think that they're just a little bit further away, from really moving up the rankings here in 24. But I'm not saying don't watch out for the Commanders. I do believe that maybe halfway through the season, you're going to see a little bit of a tide change here. And the Commanders are going to be able to build upon their early success of bringing in these players. And I think that they're going to be a better defense at the end of the year than where they start. I think they'll be in the top 20 for sure by the end of the season, but I agree with 29 to start because they're rebuilding, and it's never easy the first year of a rebuild, as we've seen with the 2021 Detroit Lions. Next up, Los Angeles Chargers at 28. So the Chargers hired defensive coordinator Jesse Minter, which according to this article was a brilliant move by head coach Jim Harbaugh. They also liked the selection of linebacker Junior Colson in the 2024 NFL Draft, as it gives the Los Angeles Chargers an off-ball linebacker who knows Minter's system. However, the Chargers' front seven is still not a top 15 unit, and its secondary is probably worse than that. Paired with the transition of learning Minter's system, it will likely be a rough year for the Chargers' defense. Fortunately, according to this article, the future is bright. So if I were to look at the Chargers' moves this year, and shout out to somebody who bought coffee. I don't know. Someone bought coffee. I just seen something flash across my screen. Mm-hmm. Appreciate it. Thank you. I'll try to check here in just a second. Let me get to the Chargers here. Oh, where is it? Come on now. All right, so Los Angeles Chargers. When you look at what happened to them this offseason, they released linebacker Eric Kendricks. They also released cornerback A.J. Uzodinma. They lost... they lost some Mike Williams on the offensive side of the ball, but they signed... or re-signed Aloy Gilman, safety. They signed defensive lineman Poona Ford. They also brought in Troy Dye. They signed him. And linebacker Denzel Perryman and corner Bradley Bozeman. So a lot of one-year deals, but the fact that they lost Eric Kendricks, that's a big loss for this team, especially someone over the middle of this defense. Eric Kendricks was a big loss. They're rebuilding, and I think that Harbaugh obviously is going to want to rebuild as quickly as possible, but at the same time, the Michigan fans that know Harbaugh well know that he is not about speed at all. He is about getting it right. He wants his players, his schemes to be done right. It's not, hurry up and throw some garbage on the field. He would rather lose and put things in place the right way than, to lose and also put garbage on the field. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I would expect a rebuild here for a couple of seasons and then watch out. The problem is they have really good offensive weaponry. And the biggest issue for them right now is their quarterback. I mean, you're paying for a quarterback that could be pretty good in this league, and they just don't have all the pieces together right now. So I say it's going to be a quicker rebuild, but I'd say next year the Chargers are probably going to jump out the gate. This year is going to be a down year for them. It's 28. I agree with it. They really didn't do a whole lot that really excited me anyway. So I'm in agreement. Now, the next one, the Cardinals. Go ahead and did you just do the Chargers, or I did, didn't I?
I think you did the Chargers.
Yeah, I did. So, why don't you go ahead on the Cardinals?
The Arizona Cardinals. We didn't love the free agency signings, but the 2024 NFL draft gave us a lot more confidence in the Arizona Cardinals defense for 2024. Jonathan Gannon made things work with little to no talent in 2023, but now he has defensive lineman Darius Robinson and cornerbacks Max Melton and Elijah Jones, plus fellow rookie Xavier Thomas and Dadrian Taylor Demerson make this a much deeper defensive depth chart than it used to be. We also give some consideration to the offense when compiling our NFL defensive rankings, and the Cardinals' vastly improved supporting cast around Kyler Murray means a lot fewer 3-and-outs. I know Will really likes the Arizona Cardinals and thinks they're going to have a breakout season this year, and possibly defense might be why. And I am going to say this right now. Darius Robinson was a kid that we were seriously looking at as the Detroit Lions had the pick at 29. That was a kid that went to Missouri, and he was originally from Michigan, so he had a lot of ties, and he even said that he wanted to go to the Lions and play for the Lions. So it's going to be fun watching that kid and seeing what he does in this Arizona Cardinals defense, and maybe they can put it together this year and start climbing up this list a little bit. What do you think, Will?
So as far as the Cardinals go, look, they didn't lose a lot this offseason at all. Matter of fact, they re-signed their edge, LJ Collier. They signed cornerback Sean Murphy Bunting. I mean, that's not like a crazy signing to me, but solid contract for him. He got $25 million over 3 years. He's a solid corner. He's not like a true number one or anything in my opinion, but they also signed defensive lineman Bilal Nichols. They signed defensive lineman Justin Jones. They signed linebacker Mac Wilson. They brought in defensive line Kairos Tonga. So they did some things on the surface level to try to address this defense. And then you're spot on with Darius Robinson here. Look, Max Melton and Darius Robinson, those are bullseyes. They hit right there, big time. Darius Robinson is going to be extremely fun to watch. He's going to get a lot of playing time right up front. He should be a starter from day one, in my opinion. And then Max Melton was one of I was leaning towards Max like in the later rounds for the Lions had they not picked up somebody early in the first round. Max Melton had some of the best footwork that I've seen this season, but nobody has better footwork than Terrion Arnold. I mean, I can't find anyone that can match what Terrion Arnold's feet do. And I promised you guys that video. I'll try to get it done today. I just remembered. I totally forgot about it. So Max Melton and Elijah Jones, I mean, all three of these guys, they're going to be fun to watch. And I think that the Arizona Cardinals are a little bit closer than they are further away. Where are they going to end up this year? I'm not saying that their defense is going to be world beaters by any means. Give them a couple of seasons, but I do believe this kind of worst to first mentality. I think that the Cardinals are going to be at least in the playoff hunt. So I'm going to put them in the wild card this year for sure, and they might shock somebody and win a game. That's where I've got the Cardinals, and I don't think it's going to all come from defense. I think that they've got some pretty solid offensive pieces as well, and you need to keep the defense off the field if you want your defense to be successful. They've got to string together some long drives to allow their defense to win. Next up, we have the Cincinnati Bengals. So the Cincinnati Bengals defensive coordinator, Lou Anarumo, simply didn't have the talent or the experience in the secondary to make his system work last season. Sounds very familiar to Aaron Glenn. Fortunately, safety Von Bell has returned, and Cincinnati did add some playmakers in Geno Stone at free safety, or a playmaker in Geno Stone at free safety. The Bengals defense would still greatly benefit from adding another edge rusher, and we don't trust their number 2 corner situation at this time, but the unit shouldn't be quite as bad as witnessed throughout the 2023 season. Although that changes if Trey Hendrickson is traded. So remind me here. So this article is how old? Yeah, this is just a couple of days ago. So Hendrickson still not traded. I guess I'm not surprised. The one thing that I'm surprised they did not mention was DJ Reader. The loss of DJ Reader is huge for any defense. A guy that is game in, game out, double teamed consistently. A guy that pushes the pocket, that totally changes the run game. That's a huge loss for the Bengals. And we're talking defense, right? We're talking defensive rankings. So putting the Bengals at 26, I would say that that's more of an indictment on losing DJ Reader than anything else, to be honest with you. If I look at what the Bengals did this season, from the offseason perspective, what did they do? Who did they lose? So on the defensive side of the ball, they brought in Geno Stone, like I just mentioned. They re-signed their linebacker, Akeem Davis Gaither. They brought in Sheldon Rankins, which, that's a big deal. So losing DJ Reader but bringing in Sheldon Rankins, it's not a fair trade-off, but that's a good hole to plug for DJ Reader with Sheldon Rankins. Sheldon Rankins is an up-and-comer, in my opinion. Plays pretty well, pretty high level. Then they brought in safety Von Bell, like I mentioned. But that was really about it. So they didn't have a ton of moves on the defensive side of the ball. And then as far as their rookies, I don't have the rookies. One second here. So they brought in defensive tackle Chris Jenkins from the University of Michigan. He was the 49th overall pick in this year's draft. Who else did they bring in? One second here. Thought I had it open for him, but I guess I didn't. So round one, they grabbed an offensive tackle. Round two. Why is this not going through each of the rounds? Come on. Here we go. Round two is Chris Jenkins, defensive tackle. Round three, they brought in wide receiver Jermaine Burton. Round three again, they brought in another defensive tackle, McKinley Jackson. And then round four, they brought in Eric All out of Iowa, the tight end. Round five, they brought in a corner, Josh Newton out of TCU. And then they brought in another tight end in round six, Tanner McLaughlin out of Arizona. And then another defensive end, Cedric Johnson, round six. Round seven, they brought in another DB, Dijon Anthony. And then a center, again, in round seven, Matt Lee out of Miami. So overall, they really tried to beef up their defense. They brought in a couple of defensive tackles, the defensive end, cornerback. They brought in a free agent, Sheldon Rankins. So Cincinnati Bengals at 26. Do I agree? I'm probably going to change my tune on this one. I think that the Bengals might have a little bit of a better defense than what's being projected right now. But we'll leave them at 26. I'll agree with this article, for the moment. Let's see where they are week 8. But if some of these pieces can gel, remember, it's hard as a defensive lineman to come in year one and really lay the wood down, especially when you're in a defense that's missing a big, important piece like DJ Reader. Sheldon Rankins is going to have to be the leader of that group. Moving on to 25, New York Giants. What do you got, Eric?
All right. The 2024 NFL Draft addressed the New York Giants' biggest defensive needs, adding Tyler Nubin and Andrew Phillips to the secondary. Nubin isn't a great athlete, but he has a nose for the football, and Phillips is one of the rookies who can challenge for significant snaps quickly. If the Giants' secondary is even just below average, a pass rush featuring Kayvon Thibodeau, Brian Burns, and Dexter Lawrence can make it look much better. There are always some reservations about a new defensive play caller, but we do see plenty of upside for the Giants defense in 2024. And I have been watching the off-season, what is that show called?
Hard Knocks?
Yeah, the Hard Knocks off-season with the New York Giants. And episode 1 was on, and they lost their defensive coordinator. They got a new one, and they brought the guy in, and I kind of like the way they're doing things. And it hasn't got to where they traded for Brian Burns yet. I think that's on this week's episode that premieres tonight. And they might be doing some stuff right. I think they might have the New York Giants defense ranked a little bit low. I like some of the names that they're putting out there on defense, Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau, and some of these new kids. So I would say watch out for the New York Giants. I think just like the Commanders, they are going to be maybe one of the surprise defenses of the year this year, because defense was the only thing they could hang their hats on last year. It's going to be a little bit better, I think, this year than it was last year, even with a new coordinator.
So I'm going to reach back to the Bengals for just a moment. Shout out here to Brent Lighton. Says that Sheldon Rankins is a pass rush only defensive tackle. His size would make you think that he can play the run, but he cannot. So good point on Sheldon Rankins there, Brent. Appreciate the comments in there. Peter Van Larhoven, I'll get to that question here in just a second. And Brent says AG needs to get it right this year. If not, DC is going to have to correct it. Ooh. I think that, like I was saying earlier about AG being kind of in a similar situation to the Cincinnati Bengals, not having the right personnel. That's changed this year. They really went out for AG this year and made sure that they brought in the players that could fit his system. So, yeah, it's all guts or no glory this year, man. They've got to get it together. They've got to get it together. And I think that they will. I really do. I really think that they're gonna put it together. Steven Spinazzola says you do a great job. Appreciate the compliment, Steven. Mike P says, oh, that was an older. You guys are responding to something different. So getting on to the Giants here. I forgot that Hard Knocks was tonight. So Giants don't excite me. Matter of fact, I would put the Bengals above the Giants in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat. And matter of fact, let me say this about the Hard Knocks episode 1 of the Giants. Nobody can touch what the Lions did. When I watch it, it's not exciting to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just not. It just doesn't have that je ne sais quoi. It just doesn't have it. It doesn't pull. It doesn't pull you in.
Hard Knocks will never have that magic again.
No, and I'm not just saying that as a Lions fan. I'm saying that because it was just different. I mean, it was captivating every single minute of every episode. It's like I had to rewind things over and over and over again because I had to rewatch what I just watched. But anyway, the Giants. So the 2024 NFL draft for the Giants was decent. Here's what they did. They got one of my favorite players out of this draft, but they went offense first with Malik Neighbors. Not surprising. Can Daniel Jones utilize him? Yes. Is he going to utilize him? I don't know. I don't trust Daniel Jones. And then in round 2, they brought in safety Tyler Nubin. He was one of my favorite early round safeties. I don't think that's any surprise, but I also pegged Sion Vake to the Lions. And I'm not surprised where Tyler Nubin ended up here. So good pick by the Giants in taking a safety in Tyler Nubin, but DBs take a minute. They're not all Brian Branch. So I don't know if Tyler Nubin's going to jump off the page in year 1, but the possibility is there. And then they doubled down just like the Lions kind of did. And they grabbed Andrew Phillips at pick number 70. This guy, Andrew Phillips, is going to surprise some people. He's got the length to really disrupt the football. Tough kid, good speed, smart. He's going to be somebody to watch here in the next couple of seasons in the NFL. Andrew Phillips is going to be a stud. My favorite player, one of my favorite players this year, I was hoping that the Lions were going to kind of double down on the tight end room. And Theo Johnson ended up in New York. This one burned me. But I again, where he was picked, I wasn't surprised. I thought that Theo was going to be off the board around this time, and he was. He is a massive man, good speed, is going to take a minute to get up to speed. But could you imagine if the Lions would have brought in Theo Johnson with Sam Laporta and Brock Wright? I mean, my goodness. That would have been an incredible tight end room. And then in the round 5, they brought in Tyrone Tracy, a running back. So that didn't help the defense. Round 6, they brought in a linebacker in Darius Masau out of UCLA. I'm not excited about this guy. I don't know a ton about him, but I can just tell you I'm not excited about him to help the Giants in, this season. When I look at what they lost and what they brought in. So on the defensive side of the ball, they brought in Brian Burns, which is huge. They also signed Jalen Mills to a 1-year deal as, another safety. They brought in linebacker Carter Coughlin on a 1-year deal. And that was it. But Brian Burns was the, showtime for them this offseason. That was the show me that, you want to get better kind of a signing. So Giants at 25, Brian Burns is going to have to play out of his mind to help this defense. They're a young team right now. They've got a lot of pieces that maybe just aren't as well versed together as they should be at this point, in their careers. The Giants are just going to be going through it for a couple of seasons trying to put it back together. 25, I'm good with it. I probably would have put them at 26 behind the Bengals. Next up, we've got the Seahawks. Old trash birds. So it's going to take a full season for the young Seattle Seahawks defenders to learn Mike Macdonald's system. Good point. That's what happened in Baltimore, and while it will greatly benefit Seattle in the long run, the growing pains will be painful, especially when you meet up with Detroit again. It doesn't help that safety, off-ball linebacker, and edge rusher are all weaknesses on the Seahawks depth chart right now. Byron Murphy is simply perfect for the Seattle Seahawks. You saw how important Justin Madubuike was to McDonald's scheme last season with the Baltimore Ravens, and it was evident in Seattle last year that they couldn't create interior pressure. Murphy changes all of that. He is outstanding and collapsing, winning with explosiveness off the snap and the power to fight through blockers. If he lives up to the NFL comparisons of Ed Oliver and Grady Jarrett, which we believe he can, the Seahawks are adding a Pro Bowl talent to the defensive interior. Seahawks, I don't know why they're above the Giants and the Bengals. Like they've got a lot that they're mixing up here. They lost a lot this year. So on the defensive side of the ball, they lost Quandre Diggs, they lost Jamal Adams, they lost Brian Moan. They also, I think that was it. They brought in Leonard Williams. That was a good pickup. They brought in Artie Burns. Not exciting. They brought in Rayshon Jenkins. That's a good pickup. They brought in or re-signed edge Darrell Taylor. Not super exciting. Then linebackers, they brought in Tyrell Dodson and Jerome Baker. I mean, you could probably make an argument for Tyrell Dodson. And then defensive line, Jonathan Hankins is a pretty good defensive line pickup. So overall, I mean, they got quite a lot of new cast of characters. And spot on with Byron Murphy here. Byron Murphy is going to be a big reason why the Seattle Seahawks can have a good defense over the next couple of seasons. And I think that's what I'm in agreement with here on this statement for this article, is that the Seattle Seahawks are going to require a couple of seasons to put it back together. So we've got to take our shots when we can. And the Lions are obviously going to pick apart the Seattle Seahawks this year. That defense isn't going to be able to hold a candle to what our offense is going to be able to do. Lions are going to win by 20 in that game. Seattle. So up next is the Indianapolis Colts at 23.
Oh, well, I'll say something about Seattle. We get to play Seattle Monday night, week 4. And when you and I were out at the combine, if you remember, my favorite guy that we watched on day one was Byron Murphy.
Yep.
And I just remember his legs were like Hulk arms, just huge. And I couldn't quit, just gushing about this Byron Murphy kid. So he might be okay for the Seattle Seahawks, but the rest of their defense, it's going to take a while.
That Byron Murphy is going to be special.
Yeah.
I watched a video the other day. It was Byron Murphy and I think it was Byron Murphy and Braden Fisk. They did a comparison of them running the bag drill or whatever. It just watching how they turned and how tight he was. You remember how tight he was in and out of the bags?
Yeah, him and then Fisk also, man, those guys were just like and Trice. Those three were kind of like the bell of the ball at the combine. You know, they were doing all the drills and running really fast. And the one guy is like, or whatever when he did his 40s.
Yeah, Braden Fisk.
Yeah, God, that was so much fun.
Yeah, so, I mean, I see where Byron Murphy is definitely going to have an impact on this team. How soon, I just don't know. But you want to talk about a guy that super exciting to watch. It's just how's it going to translate to the NFL?
Yeah. For a lot of you guys that don't know, Will and I both went to the combine for the first couple of days, and we were really interested in checking out the defensive players. So we got a firsthand look at all these guys, just like the NFL teams did. And I ended up staying for the last 2 days as well. And that place turned electric, and it absolutely filled with like 16,000 fans on Saturday. So if you ever get a chance to go down to the combine, please do it. As a fan, it's so much fun.
Yeah, it was a ghost town for the first couple of days. Like we were some of the only people in there, which was fine, but it was a good experience to watch. And obviously we'll be doing that every year. Next year, I don't think it's at Indianapolis though. Shout out to Tracy, $5 super chat says, shout out to you, Will, for the great shows and all the great Lions content. We all appreciate the great job that you do. I appreciate that, Tracy. And I appreciate all of the work that you do being a moderator. And talking about moderators, we might need to add a couple. So we are taking some applications. If you guys are interested in becoming a moderator, please send us an email to mailbag@rockedon.com. We'll have a conversation, obviously, off of air and see if you guys could be a fit as a mod. You don't have to be in for every single show. And the goal is that you enjoy the shows as opposed to putting in the work. But always having extra mods is helpful when other people can't be around. But anyway, if you'd like to become a moderator or help out with the show in any way, shape, or form, or start your own show, reach out to us at mailbag@rockedon.com. All right, what do you got up for Indianapolis Colts?
All right, the Indianapolis Colts. Well, let's see. When do we play the Colts? So we play the Colts on Sunday, November 24th.
Was that week 5?
No, that's like week 10.
Week 12. Week 12, sorry. Week 12.
Yeah. All right. The Indianapolis Colts basically ignored what everyone believed was a need at cornerback until the round of 6 of the 2024 draft. Combine that with striking out on L'Jarius Sneed trade, and it's clear general manager Chris Ballard has a ton of confidence in improvements from a young secondary. We're not nearly as confident, but Indianapolis did bolster its pass rush with Latu. A front four that consistently get into the backfield makes the secondary look better. So we'll give the Colts some benefit of the doubt in regard. However, we still have big questions about the back end heading into the summer. So I'll say this about that Latu guy. Wasn't he really injury prone or coming off an injury?
Yeah, he had the really bad neck injury. And that's why I was not.
Who knows?
Yeah. All it takes is one hit.
Boom or bust, but man, you're looking at maybe can't even play.
Well, no, he's going to be able to play. I mean, he's been playing fine, but the boom or bust comment there, yeah. I mean, all it takes is one wrong hit, and that neck is in trouble again.
He could be at practice or preseason, and that's it. He's done.
Yeah, I would never take a risk on somebody like that. So Steve wanted to let everybody know that as a moderator, you get a great retirement package.
Now I know what you're laughing at.
Yeah, that was hilarious. Yeah, that's hilarious. So Indianapolis Colts. Look, this is another up and coming team. I think that they're going to make some leaps this year. They were so close last season to doing some great things. This is a team that I think that we do need to watch out for. Week 12 is not going to be an easy win, even though I'm saying it's a win. It's not going to be easy, in my opinion. It's going to be a fun game to be at. But they extended Zaire Franklin, linebacker. They re-signed edge Tyquan Lewis. They re-signed defensive line Grover Stewart. They re-signed cornerback Kenny Moore. They brought in Raekwon Davis, defensive lineman. They re-signed linebacker Ronnie Harrison. They re-signed edge Jannard Avery. And then they also re-signed defensive line Taven Byron. And they also got Joe Flacco on the team, which is crazy cool. I'm not real high on their quarterback situation. I would love to see Joe Flacco get another season underneath his belt at 40 years old. But this team did not lose in the offseason. In my opinion, they won big time. They got better. And then in the first round, like you mentioned, they brought in Laiatu Latu. So boom or bust situation here. If the guy stays healthy and puts on some muscle, I just thought he was too lanky. He was really long. He was slow off the ball, in my opinion. His tape was just not exciting. I don't understand what everybody saw in this guy. I really don't. My vision, I guess, on guys is just totally different, and that's probably why I've hit on quite a few, draft picks and where they kind of end up in their, first couple of seasons as, post-rookie status. But this one, for me, I could be incredibly wrong on, or I might hit the nail on the head. I just don't see it with Latu. I don't. And I know that puts me in very rare air. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with being wrong. We'll see what happens. But boom or bust situation there. So what they did in the draft, though, is they went offense or defense, offense. And then in the fifth round, brought in a linebacker, then a cornerback, and then a cornerback, and then a defensive tackle. So they did not address the defense early after Latu. But I think what they did in the offseason cemented the fact that they were confident in who they already had on the team. And some of, the players that they brought in, like Raekwon Davis, that's a huge pickup. And they got him for $7 million a year. Like, that was a huge pickup for them. So it's going to be an exciting team to watch. I think that they're going to be a lot better than what's been advertised. At least what's advertised on paper. They got one of my favorite offensive tackles in Matt Goncalves. They got one of my favorite guards / centers in Tanner Bortolini. Short arms, though, I believe, in Tanner. But Matt Goncalves, man, he's a guy that can do great things on the offensive line. Picked up in the third round. So they brought in some players that I liked. Players that I would have been happy with had they ended up a Detroit Lion. So at 22, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We got to hustle, man. We got like 26 minutes left. So Tampa Bay Buccaneers here. We got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense certainly benefited from from facing 3 NFC South offenses 6 total times in 2023. And that means that the NFC South is terrible. However, a 7-game stretch in the second half of the season saw the Buccaneers surrender a 93.4 quarterback rating and a 10-5 TD to interception ratio. The important thing this offseason was retaining Levante David and Antoine Winfield Jr., but cornerback and edge rusher are glaring issues that prevent this, as of now, from being a top 20 defense. We are not convinced that Chris Braswell changes much, and that gives us no reason to expect Tampa Bay to consistently maintain a quality defense this fall. Well, they're highly wrong on Chris Braswell. Highly wrong. Whoever wrote this, I forgot who wrote this. Chris Braswell is going to be an insane addition to this team. Furthermore, they didn't mention the player that the Lions took from them, Carlton Davis. So that's a big loss for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They lost their number one corner, in my opinion. And who did they put in place of Carlton Davis? Well, let's take a look at who they brought in here in the offseason. They released Shaquille Barrett, huge loss. They franchise tagged safety Antoine Winfield. They re-signed Greg Gaines, defensive lineman. They re-signed Levante David, linebacker. Then they brought in Jordan Whitehead, huge pickup, super cheap contract, 2 years, $9 million. Then they brought in a cornerback, Bryce Hall, on a 1-year deal. And that was it. So I'm sorry, but Bryce Hall is not better than Carlton Davis. And then in the draft, they brought in Graham Barton in the first round, and then edge Chris Braswell in the second round, safety Tyke Smith, and that was it for defense. So as far as Chris Braswell is concerned, he rated out as one of the better defensive edge on my list, on the thing that I started to build last year, my ranking system. He ranked out as one of the best defensive ends when you compare all of his measurables. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. I'm going to move through a couple of these, Eric. So Philadelphia Eagles, we'll hold off on giving Philadelphia Eagles too big of a jump in our NFL defensive rankings following their strong draft haul. But they did move from 27 to 21st. Quinion Mitchell has the potential to become a number one corner, especially under the tutelage of Darius Slay and the Eagles coaching staff. Cooper DeJean, wherever you see him playing, is a perfect fit for the Vic Fangio system. Plus, the Philadelphia Eagles can even bolster its defensive front with edge rusher Jackix Hunt, or it's supposed to say Jalix Hunt, and linebacker Jeremiah Trotter Jr. There's a chance that the Eagles can field one of the 10 best defenses in 2024, but that spot needs to be earned on the field this fall. I agree and I disagree with the Eagles. The Eagles absolutely killed the draft and the offseason. This is a team that's not screwing around. Let me go into their offseason real quick, and then I'm going to skip through a few here. So they had a crazy offseason. So they brought in Julian Okwara from the Lions. Not concerned about that one. They released safety Kevin Byard, cornerback Avonte Maddox. Of course, Jason Kelsey retired. They re-signed their edge Brandon Graham. Fletcher Cox retired. They signed Bryce Huff, huge pickup. They signed Zach Bond. Okay. Who else? CJ Gardner-Johnson came back. Not really that worried yet. Oren Burks, linebacker. So, I mean, out of what they did in just the offseason alone, I mean, they lost a couple of big pieces here. Jason Kelsey and Fletcher Cox are two of the cogs on this team as leaders. I mean, guys that, led the offense or the defense. But they really helped themselves out by bringing in Bryce Huff. And then when you look at their draft, my goodness, they didn't pull any punches this year. They knew what they wanted. Quinion Mitchell, corner, number one or first round pick. And then they backed it up by Cooper DeJean in round 2. And then they brought in Jalix Hunt in round 3. And then they brought in Jeremiah Trotter in round 5. Jeremiah Trotter, big slip in the draft. Jalix Hunt rated out one of the highest ranks in my system as far as measurables. Doesn't have a ton of production, right? It didn't come from a great school. Where did he come from again? Was it some weird name? Name escapes me right now. But anyway, he didn't have a ton of competition where he was at, but his measurables and what he could do on the field, very fun to watch. Dude is an absolute monster. He just plays out of position at times. So Philadelphia Eagles ranked at 21. I wholeheartedly disagree. I would put the Philadelphia Eagles right now as a top 16 defense in the NFL to start the season. And I do believe that they can work their way up. Their rookies have to play at a high level, but they brought in Cooper DeJean and Quinion Mitchell. Two rookies that are probably going to play day one. But learning, being around guys like CJ Gardner-Johnson, hopefully he doesn't taint them too much. Next up, Miami Dolphins at 20. Quite simply, the Miami Dolphins will have to work to get their way back up to to their defense being, really good in 2024. Bradley Chubb is returning from an ACL tear, so he's probably not going to play at all this year. If at all, it'll be very limited. And then Jalen Phillips faces a long recovery from a torn Achilles as well. To make matters worse, they lost Christian Wilkins. I don't know how the Miami Dolphins are ranked as a top 20 defense. They didn't really do a whole lot, but they did bring in Kendall Fuller, Jordan Poyer, Shaq Barrett, and Anthony Walker Jr. So even though that they have some big losses, I mean, they did try to fill some holes. They did a pretty decent job at doing that. As far as the rest of their offseason acquisitions, though, let me pull it up here.
Looks like they got Chop Robinson.
Do you have the draft in front of you?
No, it's just if you continue down on that article, it says Chop Robinson has upside.
Oh, yeah, big time. But the Miami, man, they had a crazy offseason. So they lost Emmanuel Ogbah, Keon Crossan, Jerome Baker, linebacker. They brought in Isaiah Mack. They brought in Davion Nixon, both defensive linemen. They re-signed Elijah Campbell. They re-signed Nick Needham. Then they brought in Anthony Walker, Jordan Brooks, Shaquille Barrett, Jordan Poyer, Saran Neal. They lost Xavier Howard. Brought in Neville Gallimore, Kendall Fuller, Jonathan Harris. Benito Jones is back. Deshaun Hand re-signed. So, I mean, they do have a pretty good cast of players. But I wouldn't say that, you've got a bunch of all-stars on this team. They really don't. And I think that they lost quite a bit. I'm not going to give the Dolphins a top 20 defense. So, maybe this comes back to bite me. But I would put them probably 24, 25. I would drop them back a few rungs. Could they make it into the top 20 by the end of the season? Potentially. This one was another shocker to me. The Tennessee Titans up at 19. So Tennessee Titans, it's certainly surprising to see that the Titans being aggressive in improving their defense in a single offseason, considering that they were previously viewed as more of a retooling team. However, their new defensive coordinator, Denard Wilson, now has a top number one corner in L'Jarius Sneed to pair with a very solid starter opposite him in Chibodi Awuzie. That was huge, right? I mean, going out and getting two corners, two of the best corners in the league last year. I mean, maybe not Awuzie as much, but he was probably a top 15. And then L'Jarius Sneed was top 3-4 corner in the league. And then they pair that up with Roger McCreary, holding it down in the slot. So suddenly the Titans secondary is from a weakness now to a strength. If the Titans pass rush led by Jeffrey Simmons, Arden Key, and Harold Landry III can up their game in 2024, the Tennessee Titans could finish with a top 15 defense. I am going to agree with that. It was a bit shocking that the Tennessee Titans did what they did this year. They lost a few key players, but they brought in a whole lot more. And then as far as the NFL draft for them, in the first round, they went offense and brought in a tackle, and then they brought in Trevonde Sweat in the second round. That's a mammoth of a man. I know he had an offseason mistake with the drinking and driving and that. Hopefully he's gotten rid of that behavior. But Trevonde Sweat, I mean, you remember watching him, dude. I mean, he was
fun to watch.
He was just moving for how big he was.
For the big dude, yeah.
And then they also brought in Cedric Gray in the fourth round, and then Jarvis Brownlee, who is a sneaky good corner out of Louisville, in the fifth round. And then they brought in another safety and an edge in the seventh round, James Williams and Jalen Harrell out of Michigan. Jalen Harrell, big-time slip into the seventh round. Very unique options for Tennessee. I'm a firm believer that they're going to have a pretty good defense this year. I can't remember. Do we have the Titans this year?
Yeah, we play the Titans this year.
I thought we did.
Yep.
Early in the season, right?
Tennessee Titans,
Week 8.
Sunday, October 27th.
Yeah, that's like one of our only prime type of games.
Yeah, it's 1:00 on Fox.
Yeah. So interesting. Tennessee Titans are going to be a team to watch. Quite honestly, I would put them on a fantasy watch list right now. If you've got to pick up a secondary defense at some point throughout the season, if you can stash an extra defense, Tennessee Titans would be a team that potentially could be a breakout team. Los Angeles Rams at 18. So the retirement of Aaron Donald dropped the Rams considerably in their defensive rankings this year. But see, I think what they're forgetting is Kobe Turner. Like, he was one of my number one targets for the Lions last year was Kobe Turner. I wanted them to pick him up in the worst way possible to help our defensive line. It didn't happen, and then look what he does. Now, of course, playing next to Aaron Donald, obviously that elevated his game. If Kobe is who I think he is, then he's not going to have a drop-off this year. If anything, he's either going to repeat or improve, and I'm going to go with the latter. I think he will improve this year. But if one of the best defensive linemen in NFL history stuck around, the Los Angeles Rams would have had a top 12 defense to start 2024. Instead, we see a secondary that they love and some exciting young talent, Kobe Turner and Byron Young. Byron Young is another amazing pickup for this team. There just isn't a game wrecker, and Donald's departure is going to be felt for a long time. Los Angeles needs a bully in the front seven following Donald's retirement. Jared Verse is that guy. And yes, he is that guy. Week 1 is not going to be easy, guys and ladies.
Nope.
It is not going to be easy. This team has gotten better, in my opinion, on the defense, even without Aaron Donald. We held Aaron Donald out of the playoff game. He didn't do much against us. You've got some bona fide talent here. Kobe Turner, Byron Young, and Jared Verse. You've got some young, athletic powerhouses on the front of this line. Now, will they be able to put it all together? We'll see. But having those three for the foreseeable future in LA, their future is bright. So 18, I'm cool with it. If those three gel and find a way to click, that is going to be a nasty defense in a very short window. Minnesota Vikings 17, take it away, Eric.
All right. While the Minnesota Vikings lost Danielle Hunter this offseason, they did more than enough to make up for his departure. I don't agree with that. Jonathan Greenard was arguably better than Hunter on a per-snap basis in 2023, and Minnesota added first-round pick Dallas Turner to round out its edge rushing group. Plus, the Vikings defense improved at off-ball linebacker with the addition of Blake Cashman. We still have major concerns with the Vikings secondary, specifically at cornerback, but this front seven is excellent, and defensive coordinator Brian Flores is an architect who could make this a top 12 defense at its peak. The Minnesota Vikings. I don't think that their defense is going to be quite what it was last year. And losing their rookie fourth round cornerback to that car crash, that's really, really sad. And that sucks. And that's going to bring them down just a little bit more even. But Danielle Hunter, I think, was the engine that could in this defense. That was Brian Flores's guy. And losing him, I think, is going to be huge. The Greenard, I don't really know much about him. Didn't he come from Miami?
Not real sure. Who did you mention?
Jonathan Greenard. I think he might have came from Miami, but I don't know much about him. They're saying that his per snap basis was better than Hunter, but we'll have to wait and see. To me, I think people are going to wake up to the way Minnesota was doing things and the Brian Flores defense. I don't think he's going to be able to surprise people like he did last year.
Well, I will say this. What the Minnesota Vikings did this offseason is going to come back to help them in a big way soon. They are retooling. They are trying to build upon somewhat of a success with a funny defense. I mean, it's a high blitzing defense. They're like dropping 8, then they're rushing 8. They're all over the place on this defense. The Lions did a really good job against that defense. He came from Houston, by the way, Greenard.
Oh, there you go.
So Minnesota Vikings offseason, they signed Jonathan Greenard, obviously $76 million, huge deal. They brought in Andrew Van Ginkel out of Miami. That's the one from Miami. 2 years, $20 million. That was a spot on, rocked on, lock guess on his contract. Linebacker Blake Cashman, they brought him in, and they released defensive lineman Dean Lowry. They re-signed Jonathan Bullard. They signed defensive lineman Jerry Tillery. They signed defensive lineman Jonah Williams. They brought in cornerback Shaquille Griffin. They signed Jihad Ward, edge rusher, and linebacker Camus Grugier Hill. This is a scary defense. They lost Daniil Hunter. So what? They just replaced him with like 4 dudes and 4 guys that can all play. The Minnesota Vikings defense is going to be a very difficult defense for the Lions in 2024. I'm just going to put that out there. It is not. Their offense is probably going to stink to a degree. But the more and more that I keep reading and, watching as far as what's coming out of Minnesota, this is not going to be an easy team to beat. And as much as I would like to say that, the Lions can lock up the NFC North, and I do believe that they can, I'm more concerned about the Vikings defense than I am the Packers. And that's probably a wish-wash statement from me making a change here. But the more I look at their defense, the more and more I'm like, holy cow, they got some dogs. And the only way we're going to be able to beat them, I believe, is if their secondary doesn't, come alive this year. If I were to take a look at their depth chart real quickly here, Minnesota Vikings depth chart. Now, obviously, they lost Kyrie Jackson, which was, heart-wrenching. And I sent a couple of nice messages out to the Vikings fandom, and it just doesn't make it any better. How do you apologize for? Life is bigger than football, and when things like that happen, us being the brethren of the NFC North with, the other 3 teams, we have to stand up. Lions Nation's really good at standing up and being a beacon of hope. So if you haven't, it's always a good thing to reach out and say something. Competition is competition, but life is bigger than football. So on the defensive side of the ball for their cornerback room now, they got Cameron Bynum, free safety, Harrison Smith, strong safety, Byron Murphy Jr., left corner, Shaq Griffin at the right corner. Their backups, pretty good. Mekhi Blackman, pretty good. Backup Jay Ward, Theo Jackson in the safety room, solid. Lewis Sine, strong safety. I like Lewis Sine. Andrew Booth Jr., their third option at right corner, pretty solid. So and then the fact that they've got Dallas Turner. Come on, man. Dallas Turner was my favorite defensive end this year. One of my favorites, but somebody that I would not have been surprised had the Lions been able to pick him up, that they would have. They probably should have, but the Lions tried to do what they did. They tried to move up a handful of times. Very interesting, though. Very interesting defense. It's going to be a tough defense this year. Watch out for the Minnesota Vikings. Top 17 defense right now. I think that's a comfortable fit. But I think the defense could be much better than advertised. I think they'll be a top 15 defense this season when it's all said and done. New Orleans at 16. I'm not going to go over it. New Orleans at 16. Buffalo Bills at 15. This one didn't make much sense to me. Now, I know that they added a lot. They lost a lot. A lot of lateral moves going on for the Buffalo Bills this offseason. I think the Buffalo Bills are closer to 20 than they are to 15. At number 14, the Las Vegas Raiders. So how good can the Las Vegas Raiders defense be in 2024? It might come down to their cornerback room and Jack Jones. After being scooped up off of waivers from the Patriots, Jones held opponents to a 63 quarterback rating and a 56.3% completion rate when he wore a Raiders uniform. If he replicates that, the Las Vegas Raiders might have a number one cornerback that will go a long way. Just one difference maker in the coverage is who can line up against top receivers will make the life easier for the quarterback easier for the quarter of Max Crosby. That statement makes no sense, whatever they wrote there. So anyway, who can line up against the receivers? Obviously, it's going to make life easier for the rest of the defense. Max Crosby, Christian Wilkins, big addition this offseason, Malcolm Kuntz, and then Tyree Wilson. We'll also put out that the remainder that this same Raiders defense held opponents to an average 84 quarterback rating with 39 sacks and a 13-12 TD to interception line in the final 13 games of the season last year. Raiders have a good defense. They do. Now, they didn't do much against us. We completely stomped them out on the Monday night game, but they did get better. Are they a top 15 defense right now? I think Max Crosby alone makes them a top 15 defense, to be honest with you. That guy is absolutely vicious. I've never seen anybody with a motor that just doesn't shut off. If anything, it seems like it picks up pace. And then you have the Green Bay Packers. Eric, take it away.
Oh, great. See, I probably don't agree with this whatsoever. I'll read it anyway. This isn't just a bet on talent on the Green Bay Packers roster. There's certainly risk with the Packers defensive coordinator, Jeff Haley. So right there, they have a brand new coordinator coming from Boston College. Listen, it's going to take time for them to gel a defense. And you listen to any Packers fan last year, all they did was complain and moan about their defensive coordinator. They all hated that coordinator for years. They wanted him gone. And listen, bringing in a new guy, it may be great. It may take a while, but it's more likely to take a while. So I would never put Green Bay at 13 here. Lions fandom aside, even. All right. We have no way of knowing how his stuff from college will translate to the NFL in his first year on the job. Fortunately, he has an all-pro talent at cornerback, Jair Alexander, impact players at edge rusher, Rashawn Gary, Kenny Clark, and Preston Smith, along with high upside off-ball linebacker and Quay Walker, who likes to get flags all the time. Most importantly, Green Bay now has the do-it-all safety Xavier McKinney that this Packers defense has lacked since Nick Collins. McKinney is the skeleton key to Haley's defense, and he rounds out a talented roster that could culminate in one of the 10 best NFL defenses in 24. I will say this, Xavier McKinney, he is a stud.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So Green Bay Packers offseason was highlighted by the release of Devondre Campbell. They also lost running back Aaron Jones. Obviously, it doesn't affect the defense. But bringing in safety Xavier McKinney, re-signing Keeson Nixon and Corey Ballantyne, those are key, free agent additions to keep around, or key free agents to keep on the team. They really didn't do a ton, it seemed like, with the offseason. But bringing in linebacker Christian Welch, I mean, he's a depth piece. When you look at their draft, that's where they did some damage. So first round, they brought in offensive linemen. Clearly, the Packers' offensive line is terrible. I still think it's terrible. Edrin Cooper, linebacker, the dude's going to be a game changer. So he's going to be someone that's going to grow quickly, for this team. And then safety Javon Bullard in round 2, much needed pick. So they wanted Brian Branch. We stole him. Now they have Javon Bullard, which quite honestly, he's the exact opposite of Brian Branch, a Bama boy versus Georgia. So, you've got Georgia for the Packers. You've got Bama for the Lions. We'll see if they continue that trend by grabbing, some of these Georgia Bulldogs, keeping that competition alive, right? Even in the NFL. And then in round 3, hold on here. In round 3, they brought in another linebacker, Tyron Hopper. Someone that, quite honestly, out of Missouri, played with Darius Robinson, could have a pretty effective season in year 1. I think that he slid under the radar. When I look at Tyron Hopper and watch some of his tape this offseason, You want to talk about a guy that has width? Guy has very broad shoulders, very long arms. He was exciting to watch, working in and around Darius Robinson. Round 4, they brought in another safety, Evan Williams out of Oregon. And round 5, they went offense. Round 6, they brought in another safety, Kitten Oladapo out of Oregon State. And then they went offensive line and then quarterback. And then in round 7, Kalen King out of Penn State, another corner. So the Packers know that their defensive backfield is trash, and they're trying to address it. So they brought in a lot of big-time players. They brought in a lot of draft picks. And their room is going to change significantly. Do I believe that they are a top 13 defense in the NFL? Probably not. Do I think that they can get to a top 13 defense? Probably. We'll see what happens. This is going to be another tough test. It absolutely is. Chef Talks Lions says, Quay Walker is a closeted Lions fan. Got it. Bo Booth, have a good day, my man. Appreciate you joining us today. We're about to wrap it up here in just a moment. Number 12, Jacksonville Jaguars. And then now, what everyone's been waiting for, the Detroit Lions. Not quite at number 10. Not outside of number 12. Smack dab at number 11, which is my favorite number, to be honest with you. Number 11's been a favorite number of mine for about 20 years right now, for other reasons that I won't explain. But number 11, Detroit Lions. Now, they start off with saying that there's issues with the Lions defense last season at the cornerback position and the defensive line. Aiden Hutchinson and Lee McNeil are forces to be reckoned with, but the two-man tandem can only do so much. DJ Reader will be a consistent presence alongside McNeil on the interior, and Marcus Davenport at least provides some juice. Some juice. Huh. Far more importantly, Detroit reworked its cornerback room with the additions of Terry and Arnold, Carlton Davis, Dennis Rakestraw. They forgot about Amik Robertson. So let's make sure we put that out there because he's not a depth guy. And the Lions secondary was its weakness in 2023. That I agree with. And we're betting it will be a strength this fall. That I also agree with. Now, they short-sighted the Lions, where they gave everybody else about 10 lines of information, or some even 2 paragraphs. That was it. The Lions got 6 lines of love. Not 50 lines, Tracy. Like, come on. 50 lines is way too much. 6 lines of love. That was an inside joke from last night. So here's what we got for the Lions, man. Totally retooled defense. Absolutely. Aiden Hutchinson, ton of pressure. Didn't win as much as he should have. You know, when you have 102 pressures and 11.5 sacks, and 3 of those sacks were by way of just touching someone down, that was a bit concerning to me last year. I want to see him win more, but I'm not saying that he has to win and get 20 sacks either. I just want to see him win more and not let things get him burnt on the outside or through his gap, or the B gap. I want to see Aiden step up this year, and I think that he will. But this article is spot on one thing for sure, and that's DJ Reader. I've said this time and time again over the last many weeks that there is no way you can double DJ Reader, double Ali McNeil, and double Aiden Hutchinson. You cannot put 6 assets on this offensive line against 3 defenders. And if they decided to, that would be every offensive lineman plus a tight end, or every offensive lineman plus a running back. And then you're always going to have a defensive end and a linebacker and a safety and a corner free to fire on the quarterback. So what does that mean? That means that this defensive line is going to be insanely effective as long as they stay healthy. The H word is so important this year. They have to stay healthy. If this defense can stay healthy, the fact that they're starting at number 11 in this article tells me that we will be a top 10 defense without a doubt if we can stay healthy. What has to happen? I think it's a few simple things. 1, health. 2, Well, Carlton Davis has to be what's advertised, right? He's saying that he can be locked down. He's going to have to lock it down. He's going to have to hold one side of the defense as his responsibility, and whether he's traveling with the best wide receiver or just staying on the left side of the defense, either way, I don't care what it is, he's got to lock it down. Terrion Arnold is going to need to get some playing time early and often. Amik Robertson obviously is going to have to hold his weight in the slot and also on the outside. Brian Branch, whether they put him at safety or nickel or both, I think that we're going to see the Lions be very multiple. They're going to disguise a lot of defenses within this 4-3 base scheme. They're going to be able to come out of it doing all sorts of different things. We're going to see a lot of different formations. The one thing that I really love is we're probably going to be able to see a rotation for once, which doesn't happen a whole lot with the cornerback room. We could actually see a rotation where guys are healthy and they're rested and they're able to get in off the bench and play at a high level. Imagine that you've got these guys kind of rolling in and rolling out, every few plays. Should an offense be able to string 9 or 10 or 12 plays together on the Lions, maybe you're bringing in, 4 corners on a rotation so that these guys are, staying fresh. That's a great position to be in. But more importantly, our linebacker room. You've got Jack Campbell that's taken a step forward this year, second year in the system. Really started to come alive in the second half of the season last year. And now you have the likes of DJ Reader in front of him that's going to open up holes. Or at least clog a couple of holes to where another hole is going to open up somewhere else where our linebackers are going to have more opportunity to rush the quarterback and be a big part of the run game. I think that the Lions are probably going to have the number 1 running defense again this year. They're going to shut it down. They think they were number 2 last year, but I think that they're going to be number 1 this year. I think our cornerbacks are going to finish in the top 15. I think that there's going to be some learning curves with Terrion Arnold and Ennis Rakestraw, but I think the veteran presence of Carlton Davis and Amik Robertson, and the fact that we've got a 4-year starter in Ifeatu Melifonwu, or a 4-year player, and a 3rd-year player in Kirby Joseph back in the safety room gives me, a lot less heartburn this year than what we were having last year. So I'm real high on the Lions defense this year. Talking about fantasy football, you better pick them up. This is going to be a team that is going to win the turnover margin. I think that, when you watch these guys play, Brian Branch, Jack Campbell, Terrion Arnold, just watch their club hand. They are constantly trying to punch the ball out. If you go back and watch their college tape into what any rookies did last year for the Lions, that's what they're trying to do, is punch the ball out to create turnovers. And that's what I love watching, man, is guys that are so mentally into the game that they don't lose on the details. They do everything right. Interesting camp that we're about to have here in about 12 days or so, 16 days, 12 days. I think 12 days.
11 days until rookies report.
11 days. So very interesting camp. It's going to be fun to watch. I'm really high on the Lions. At number 11, I was surprised that we just rose up. And it's because of how Brad Holmes is drafted. Eric, what's your points?
I have to see it before I believe it. So I'm trying so hard to temper my expectations for the Lions defense coming out of the gate week 1. We have assembled all the tools in this awesome, big, giant, new, shiny toolbox, and our tools look really awesome. We got them all in there, put in there perfect, and they're all lined up. And I'm just waiting for the truck to hit that bump and jumble them all up. Everything on paper looks great, but I need to see it, and I need to see it in the preseason. I need to see it in games. I can't wait. It's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. I think AG has the system. I think the new addition of Terrell Williams that not too many people are talking about is really going to help our D-line. He took the Titans to make them one of the better D-lines in all of the NFL. And that's one thing they didn't talk about when they were talking about the Titans defense, that they lost him. That could be huge for them. Losing a defensive line coach, people don't realize how big of a deal that really can be. And then we have the rookies, Terrion Arnold how the heck did the Lions ever acquire this kid? There's no reason on this planet that the Lions ever should have been able to draft Terrion Arnold. He was the second rated player on my board. I had Dallas Turner and Terrion Arnold. Those were my top two people that I wanted to see drafted in this last draft. And how we ended up getting him is still beyond me. And no, I don't have any SOL in me. I do not, but I need to see it. It needs to be proved to me that this defense can gel and come together. Now, by the end of the season, do I believe it could be top 15? Absolutely. Do I want to see it be top 5? Oh, you bet your muffins. I sure do, but I want to see it first. I need to see some preseason. Let's see what the preseason brings first. Hopefully it gels super fast. Hopefully DJ Reader is back and can play a little bit in the preseason. I don't think we're going to see much of our starters though, except for the young kids, Rakestraw and Terrion Arnold. We're going to get to see a lot of them in the preseason. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait for this preseason. This defense, it has all the potential in the world. Let's see it come together.
So as far as, the next team that's above the Lions, this one kind of burns me up a little bit because they've got the Chicago Bears at number 10. And when I'm reading what they wrote and they're, talking about the second half of the season, the Bears did this, the second half of this, what about the whole season? That's like the Jordan Love argument. Well, the second half of the season, he did this. Okay. The first 9 games didn't matter. Because I think when you look at a team, you want to see, yeah, of course. Did they trend and get better? Did the trajectory go up, down, flatlined? Was it all over the place? I think that we saw our Detroit Lions get better from game 1 to game, 20 throughout the season. And the fact that they're saying that the Bears held, a quarterback rating of 70.5 in the second half of the season. So there's no way for me to whittle down these stats right now. And the Bears defense also held opponents to 93.9 rush yards per game with 4 scores in an 8-game stretch. Well, that's great, but I want to see the full season. If you want me to go and pick out the 8 best games that the Detroit Lions had last year, they were a top 10 defense. And that's crazy to think. But if I were to go pull the 8 best games, they completely shut down some teams at times. So let me look at why the Lions should be ranked above the Bears. Like the Bears shouldn't be anywhere near a top 10 defense. Shouldn't be anywhere near it, to be honest with you. But when I look at rush yards, okay, the Lions had 408 attempts against them, and they allowed 1,509 yards. 3.7 yards per carry. The Bears were 3.8. Well, the Lions are better. That's all that matters. They were better.
Yep.
The Lions allowed 88.76 yards per game. The Bears, in their best 8 games, allowed 93.9. But that, for the Lions, is over the entire season. So the Lions were better. Quarterback rating. Now, the Lions didn't do so great in quarterback rating. But before I get to that, the Lions were the second best team in the NFL, tied with the Texans, the Bucks, and the Bears. Nope, I'm sorry. Just the Texans and the Bucks. They only allowed 5 explosive running plays over 20 yards. They did not allow any explosive plays over 40. The Bears allowed 6 explosive plays over 20 yards. So the Lions were better. When I look at TDs, the Lions allowed 15. This is where the Bears did a little bit better, a lot better. They only allowed 8. But for some reason, I think the Lions allowed more TDs against the goal line than they did, from the rest of the field. They struggled a little bit, I felt like in the red zone against the run game. So the Bears got 1 stat against us in the run game. In the pass game, as far as yards go, The Lions were darn near dead last as far as the most yards allowed. They ranked 28th yards allowed. TDs, the Lions allowed the sixth most TDs with 28. The Bears, with their amazing, cornerbacks, allowed 31. So the Lions are better in the pass game, apparently, which is shocking.
Wow.
But as far as the yards, the yards on the season, the Bears were better as far as allowing less yards. They allowed about 300 less yards, but they also had more attempts. So the Bears were much better in the passing game, but they allowed more touchdowns. Interceptions, the Lions, I think, were like middle of the pack with 16 interceptions. The Bears had 22. So they kicked our butt in interceptions. As far as quarterback rate, the Lions had a 91.5 overall quarterback rate for the entire season. The Bears had an 88 overall. So I don't know why they would take the last 8 games and say that they had, a 70.5. When you look at the entire season, it's 88. So again, if I want to take the best 8 games from the Lions, I bet you I could probably find a way to get them pretty close to 70.5. So it's really hard to compare when you're only looking at specific stats. And that's the thing about stats. You either use all of them or none of them. You can't just pick and choose here. I could make the Lions look like a number 1 in everything if I really wanted to.
Yeah, just take the Denver game and the Las Vegas game.
Right. And probably the Tampa Bay game. Both of them.
There you go.
So I guess what I'm saying is I just don't see how, the Bears are a top 10. And I'm not just saying this because I'm a Lions fan, and this is a Lions podcast. If I would say anything based on, this is this year's team, right? This has nothing to do with really last year other than where were they last year? What did they do this year to get better? What did the Bears do to get better? That's my question. So let's take a look at the Bears draft. Let's start there. I got allergies like crazy today. Round 1, obviously they took the bust, Caleb Williams. Number 9, they took an amazing wide receiver in Rome Odunze. So they did nothing to help their defense. Round 3, they took an offensive lineman. They did nothing to help their defense. Round 4, they took a punter.
Oh,
They did nothing to help their defense.
watch Poles cook.
Round 5, they took Austin Booker. So they finally did something to help their defensive line. But, Austin Booker, when I say that Laiatu Latu was lanky, Booker was the most unflattering defensive line in this draft, in my opinion. I do not have any confidence in that guy at all. Now, he could make me out to look like a fool. I hope he doesn't, but we will see. So they brought in 1 defensive lineman to help their defense. Now, as far as the offseason moves, what did the Bears do to get better? Well, let's take a look. They released Eddie Jackson, safety. That didn't help. Well, they re-signed Jalen Johnson to a massive deal. That helped. They brought in Tavarius Moore. He's okay. They signed Kevin Byard. That was a solid pickup. 2 years, $15 million. They also brought in safety Jonathan Owens. He's a depth guy. They brought in edge Jake Martin. Really unknown on that guy. So I don't see really much that they did this offseason as far as bringing in more talent other than Kevin Byard, the safety. So unless something is missing from PFF's, analysis here on the offseason moves for the Bears, I don't see anything that they did that really makes them better. And then if I want to take a look at their roster real quick, and then the Bears are probably going to be where we end today. If we look at their roster, compared to the Lions. What do they have on? Actually, let me look at the depth chart, not the roster. If I look at their depth chart on the defense, you've got Montez Sweat. Okay, he's pretty good. He's not great. He's pretty good. They've got Andrew Billings. He's pretty good. Javon Dexter, second-year defensive tackle. He's pretty good. He can be great. I think he was picked up in the 5th round, possibly last year. No, maybe it was second round. Maybe it was second round last year. And then they've also got right defensive end. They got DeMarcus Walker. They've got the will linebacker TJ Edwards, and then Tremaine Edmonds, overpaid on Tremaine Edmonds, middle linebacker. Jalen Johnson as left corner. Jaquan Brisker, strong safety. Kevin Byard, free safety. Tyreek Stevenson, huge pickup last year. I really liked Tyreek Stevenson last year. Right corner, and then Kyler Gordon, their nickelback. So I'm not extremely excited about their defense. I think it's a good defense. I think it's a solid defense. But nothing is really just popping off on this page other than Jalen Johnson and Montez Sweat and Kevin Byard. I think they've got 3 really good pieces. I think Tyreek Stevenson is going to be a household name, with his career in the NFL. I think he's going to be a very solid corner in this league. Am I wrong here? Am I missing something? I mean, tell me something that I'm really missing. Is Andrew Billings, Javon Dexter, Marcus Walker? I mean, Tremaine Edmonds. Okay, I guess maybe Tremaine Edmonds. So you got 4 solid players. Well, I guess before I move on to the Lions roster, what am I missing? Anything, Eric, or anybody in the chat?
Oh, man. I don't. I think that the Bears get so much hype because of all the players they've bought, not the players that they've brought in through the draft, not the players that they've cultivated and brought into their system and brought up, teaching them culture. They have no culture. It's all bought. It's just a bunch of players. They were so bad for so long and just depleted their roster of high-end players. And all of a sudden, the last couple of years, they have this big bankroll, and it's time to spend. And, bringing in the 2 linebackers and safety. And, you say that it's an upgrade getting Johnson again this year and re-signing him, but I just think it's a push. He was there last year. So that's just a push to me. That's not an upgrade.
I don't know that I said upgrade.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe the article did. But to me, it's just they're going off reputation of these players that they had before, not what they're actually doing and producing and putting on the field.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. I mean, Jalen Johnson is it's a lateral move. I mean, you didn't lose him. You didn't really get better there. You retained a player that's had a couple of good seasons. So I don't think that I'm missing anything. For whatever reason, we really struggled against the Bears in that second game. The game that we should not have, had any trouble in. Let me end this Q&A there.
And I'll ask you this too, Will. If you were an NFL player and you were a free agent and you're a defensive player, would you want to go play for the Chicago Bears?
No, I mean, if I had my choice of teams right now, obviously you have to examine, the depth chart. And if you're going to get significant playing time, if you're a top tier player, you're going to get significant playing time. But if you're a second, mid-tier kind of guy and you're looking to find a place to play, maybe you're in your 5th or 6th year and you're kind of peaking, you're in your prime. Yeah, I would say, the Lions is a great opportunity because they're going to put the best guy out there. If I go in and win my job, I'm going to play. It doesn't matter if they selected a guy before me. It doesn't matter if they're paying a guy more than me. I'm going to go play. I guess, it's pretty simple for me. When I compare these 2 rosters, this is what we got. Let me blow this up so I can actually read it. All right, we're going to start with the left defensive end. Marcus Davenport versus Montez Sweat. All right, edge Bears. Nose tackle, DJ Reader, Andrew Billings, edge Lions, 1-1. Defensive tackle, Aleem McNeil, Gervon Dexter, Lions, 2-1. Aiden Hutchinson versus DeMarcus Walker, Lions, 3-1. Will linebacker, Alex Anzalone to TJ Edwards, Lions. That would be 4-1. Middle linebacker, Jack Campbell, Tremaine Edmonds. Got to go with the Bears until we see more out of Jack. 4-2. Left corner, Jalen Johnson, Carlton Davis. Well, got to go Jalen Johnson. Have not seen Carlton Davis, on our team doing anything yet. So that would be what? We have 4-3 now?
Yeah.
4-3. Strong safety, Ifeatu Melifonwu to Jaquan Brisker. Well, clearly I'm going Ifeatu Melifonwu, and you can even put Brian Branch in that slot too, because he could be playing some strong safety this year, or free safety over Kirby Joseph. So 5-3. Free safety, Kirby Joseph versus Kevin Byard. Now, Kevin didn't have the greatest of season last year. Now, I'm not comparing PFF ranks. That would actually probably be a great show for tomorrow. We'll compare the PFF ranks tomorrow. Edge Lions. I could call this a push. So I'll call it a push. We're 5.5 to 3.5. Right corner, Terrion Arnold, Tyreek Stevenson. This is a no-brainer. Terrion Arnold hasn't played a down in the NFL. I don't normally prop up a rookie that hasn't played over a guy that's, in his second season. I can't imagine Terrion Arnold is not better than Tyreek Stevenson. So 6.5 to 3.5, Lions. Nickelback, Brian Branch to Kyler Gordon. Clearly the Lions, 7.5 to 3.5. What am I missing? So from a defensive starting perspective, even if you were to say that it was 7-4, the Lions win, but they're definitely not any less than 6-5 here from, how good and talented this team is, versus the Chicago Bears. So in no uncertain terms do I believe that the Bears have a better defense. Maybe the guy that wrote this article is a Bears homer. I don't know. I did not look. But that's it. So that's where we are today with the rankings. The Lions finish at 11. The Bears at 10. The Packers at 13. The Vikings at 17. So we're talking a pretty stiff NFC North. The rest of the defense rounds out like this. New England Patriots at 9. Pittsburgh Steelers at 8. Houston Texans at 7. San Francisco 49ers at 6. And we could make this argument. Maybe we'll do it tomorrow. We could make this argument and compare the Lions to all the rest of the defenses. Your top 5. Kansas City Chiefs at 5. Baltimore Ravens at 4. How the Dallas Cowboys are at 3 makes no damn sense.
No way.
And the Cleveland Browns at 2. And the New York Jets at number 1?
No.
Yeah. So I'm going to put out my own list. But this is an exercise today. Matt Johnson put this out from sportsnot.com. You are not right, Matt Johnson.
I like how he's got a picture of Sauce Gardner on the front there, but yet Aiden Hutchinson has more interceptions than Sauce Gardner.
Yeah, that's okay. So now I got to be the realist with that. The reason why is because nobody throws at Sauce Gardner.
I just think that stat's funny. That's one of them make it your way kind of stats.
Yeah. Yep, it is.
Everybody
right.
else throws them around, so I have to once in a while.
Absolutely. Before we head out today, let me say thank you again to the sponsors of the show, Sports Spider and Uper Lights. If you guys want all your sports in one place, please check out sportspider.com, SPYDER.com. And then Uper Lights, if you want to get into rock hounding, or if you are a seasoned veteran as a rock hound and you need more supplies and you want to go out at night and find these Uper Lights, the famous glowing rocks founded by Eric Rintamaki, visit uperlights.com. Now has a map, organized map to help you navigate and find the areas up north, so you can find some amazing spots to find your glowing rocks. So, interesting conversations today. I knew that the NFL defense was going to be a little bit of a long segment. I mean, it's already 10:30, 2.5-hour show today. Craziness.
Yeah. Wow.
And I could still keep going, but we are finding the topics that I feel are relevant. I hope you guys enjoyed the content today. Please like, share, subscribe, comment, do whatever you got to do. Do all the YouTube stuff. We appreciate it. You guys are awesome at pushing our content out. You've been doing an excellent job at helping this channel grow. I mean, we've been growing 10, 20 subscribers a day, and that's because of you guys, and we really appreciate it, which means we are getting ever so close to another giveaway. Every 500, we're giving away the helmets. I've got to catch up with a couple of people this week to make sure that we can get these things sent out. But you guys are awesome today. Eric, any final words before we head out?
Yeah, we'll get some Uperlights grab bags up here pretty soon, and we'll get that code for you guys to have a special code on the website to have a cool rocked on little package going. And thank you guys for showing up, and we'll see you all tomorrow.
All right, you guys, go in pride. Go Detroit Lions. Take care. Be good. It's Tuesday. At least it's not Monday anymore. Yesterday was rough. But we'll see you Wednesday morning, bright and early, 8 a.m. Take care. Bye-bye.
Adam Schefter at ESPN says there's 275,000 people.
Well, that was some party in downtown Detroit. 775,000 people shattering the NFL draft attendance record.
This is the future. Evolution. This is the future.